Ever witnessed someone so fast on track you doubt you could ever be on their level? The mission of advanced motorsports is to demonstrate that speed is achievable for everyone. With the expertise of some of the best sim drivers in North America, we are set to release free content on social media and comprehensive guides on our website. For those seeking the ultimate experience, our Advanced Motorsport Institute and personalized coaching sessions are the way to go. No matter your level of experience, we invite you to follow us on our social media to learn to be fast.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
'24 in the Precision Racing League prototype world is off to a flying start. 2 different winners in LMP3 in 2 different races, the return of the dominant Justin Ream, and that's just in the LMP3-GT4 challenge. And today, I think I might need a drink of water because I'm starting to feel a little bit bath thirsty. We're going down under to Mount Panorama. My name is Joey Tebbett. I'm not going to be doing that accent one more time for the rest of the night. DJ Clark is alongside me. Maybe we'll hear him break out his finest Australian brogue. Behind the scenes, you won't be hearing him. Dustin Allis is on production duty. But DJ, it is prototype night once more in the PRL and GT4 as well. We go to one of the most difficult tracks for even just single car lapping, let alone multi-class racing.
Yeah, most certainly. Mount Panorama or Bathurst, take your pick on what you want to call it. This is a perfect circuit when you talk about 2/3 of it in terms of that multi-class battle, wide, plenty of area to get around those slower class cars. The big problem? The other third, coming up and down the hill. It's going to be very, very tricky, and we're going to have to see a lot of patience here out of these LMP3s if they want to make it through here cleanly.
A lot of patience, a lot of frustration. It is going to be a good old-fashioned Australian racing fight today. And it's round 3 of the championship. We started off at Daytona. You know, pretty typical place to start with racing like this. We saw the VP Racing Sports Car Challenge with this exact combo, just racing at Daytona over the weekend. Rudskogen last week, a little bit crazy, a little bit Norwegian, but now we're in the start of our Australian part of the season. We go to Mount Panorama today. We go to Sandown next week, a little bit south, I believe. I probably should have studied my Australian geography before this. Then up to Suzuka, back to the United States for Barber, then over to Europe, then back over to Japan, and then back to America for Long Beach. It's almost like the people who designed the F1 calendars designed this. That's a lot of flight miles, but I think it'll all be worth it to end at Long Beach, CJ.
Yeah, I think it will as well. That's going to be a real circle track to kind of figure out what it is, on the schedule track to figure out what it is, because as we know, not a lot of passing there, a lot of opportunities for chaos. You better hope that you have that championship locked down by the time you get into Long Beach.
Is this the Long Beach preview today? Potentially. Bathurst, partially street circuit-esque. I think some parts of it are public streets, others purpose-built, so we'll see what happens today. It's been a tale of 2 drivers in the Drivers' Championship so far. Dayton Lowe won round 1, totally dominant at Daytona. Jason Drescher won round 2, totally dominant at Rudskogen, and both of them finished second in the races they didn't win. That's a lot of numbers, and all that adds up to them being tied on the identical amount of points. Dayton Lowe technically in the championship lead, as he did win his race first. Greg Doucette and Nicholas Karangis, the Throttle Thursday teammates, they're tied for third or second, however you want to make that out. Eric Kulaga rounds out the top 5. Salaputis, Martinez, Kulaga, Morissette, and Errol Urexoy have all been picking up the points in the first 2 rounds. These championship standings will shift a lot more, though, as there's still 7 rounds to go. This is going to be a big one to follow as well. The team's championship, with how widely spread the fastest drivers in this series are. You've actually got Grant's Garage at the head of the team's championship. That's Jason Drescher and Ian Starker racing together, but they only have 2 drivers. Vulture Motorsports South, they have 2 drivers. Vulture Motorsports North, I believe they have 3 drivers. So they have a little bit more leeway. They can fall back a little bit. It helps, DJ, when you have 3 cars, only the top 2 cars score points. So you kind of want to have 1 car at least every week that can drop out and have a bad day.
Yeah, you kind of have that built-in drop round, as it were, for the cars. That's certainly going to help them out. But as we're seeing, very close up at the top, 2 rounds down. But I think you're right. This is really going to be a very, very tight battle between the Vulture Motorsports boys, Throttle Thursday, and Grant's Garage.
Qualifying currently underway, but before we can get to that, we've got to look at the GT4 standings. Justin Ream and Graham Wildman, both at the top of the table. Graham actually doing a pretty solid job and holding only 10 points behind Justin, who has dominantly won those first 2 races. Look at Carter James in third. Ted Lowendick tied with him. Both of them maybe potentially going to win their first race in this series this season. Arcade Smith, he's been very, very fast in practice so far. A lot of drivers in this top 10 that'll be considered potentially for a win and maybe beating Justin Ream this season. It's similarly close in the team's championship as well. Soy Boys Racing, by virtue of having a couple of cars more than some of the other teams, they are in the lead of the team's championship. Big, fast, turn 1 and done. The Absolute Racing Team, that's a big name to live up to. And the Miracle Flow Misfits and a whole host of others. They're all going to be fighting for the GT4 Team's Championship. We do want to get you to qualifying, but before we can do that, we have to thank all the people who make all of this possible here in the PRL, and that always starts with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision 5 coupon code. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision 5 coupon code. This coverage is also brought to you by The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products add incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with The Butt Kicker. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And last but not least, Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. You know, DJ and I both need some of that support. That's why we're here in the booth. That's not what Dayton Lowe and Jason Drescher need, though. 1 and 2 in the championship. They've won the first 2 rounds. No real surprise to see them P1 and P2 in LMP3 right now. No surprise as well down in GT4. Cade Smith, who actually topped the timesheets in practice, he's only 3rd in qualifying right now. And the 2 drivers in front of him, 1 driver named Ted Lowendick, and 1 driver, the winner of the first 2 rounds, Justin Ream.
Yeah, the only thing I'm a little bit surprised by up at the top of the charts here is the fact that Lowe has about a 0.6 of a second gap over Jason Drescher. Now, Bathurst is a pretty long circuit. Let's keep that in mind. But regardless, that's a pretty far sizable gap. We're going to ride on board with Cade Smith, though, as he comes down into the chase right now. Bring that car all the way over to the left, now back to the right. Push it as hard as you can. Let's see what Smith has got coming through the last couple of corners.
Clonking over the curb, maybe a little bit too late in the brakes through the first part of that corner, but it is a long lap, and even one mistake can add up well, but the clock's going to run out on him, as this is a closed qualifying series. It's multi-class. When the clock runs out, you do not get to finish your lap. So Cade Smith, he is going to have to settle for 3rd But once again this season, Dayton Lowe puts it on pole. That's his second of the season, and when he was on pole at Daytona, he ran away, led every single lap. We'll see if he can do the same, as he did qualify 6/10 over last week's winner Jason Drescher, Daniel Cranifus, and Joey Morissette. It is a red and pink festival on row number 2. Sidrak Silva making his PRL debut today, starts alongside Vincent LaRue. P7 behind them went to another driver making their season debut, JP Alfonso. We see him in GT3 competition. He's taken on the LMP3 for the first time, starting alongside his fellow GT3 driver, Kwok Nin. Aroy Rexoy starts alongside Nicholas Karangis, Nicholas Salaputis, and Michael Fowler. They're going to make up the midfield in LMP3 as they often have in qualifying. Then yet another Michael Kulaga alongside Greg Doucette, Nicholas Collender, and Matt Dinsmore. Michael Blaze and Steven Martinez down to the end of the top 18. But the hits keep on coming because we have a big LMP3 field here at Bathurst. Josh Kimball, Eric Kulaga, and Corey Precker. Sean Mulholland, as usual, will not be racing tonight. I believe he'll just be sitting on pit lane on admin duty. No surprise, once again in GT4, Justin Ream, the fastest driver in PRL history in a GT4 car. It's going to take even more work to beat him today. Ted Lowendick will start directly behind him. Will he be able to get in front? I think he's hoping for maybe a little bit of trouble in the section down the hill. Maybe a little bit of Justin Ream getting held up by LMP3 traffic. I think that might be his only hope. But Cade Smith and Jean-Sebastien Bédard make up row number 2. Maxime David and Kalen Tobin, two of the easiest to pronounce names in the PRL on row number 3. Sean Romig, Adam Ostrich, Joshua Burke, and Carter James round out the top 10. And Michael Doyle and Brett Punkari, they're both in the top 10 in the championship, trying to keep their consistent runs going. John Krauser starts alongside the lead Gorman, Kenny Gorman. Matthew Zurich starts alongside the second Gorman, Dan Gorman. Remember, Kenny Porsche, Dan Mercedes. Don't forget that. Gary Gainesville is also in a Mercedes representing Pennsylvania. He starts alongside the Aston Martin of Duncan Starostka. Then Will Jennings, the first of the two Jennings, starts alongside Tim McLeish. Nathan Jennings starts alongside Doug Evans. You'll see his son Jeff coming up in the GTP-LMP2 series. Niall Drake, 23rd, didn't get a lap in qualifying. He starts alongside Robert McGeehan on the final row. 21 LMP3 cars, 24 GT4 cars. You will notice, DJ, no Graham Wildman this week, unfortunately. The chat's going to be pretty unhappy about that, but we are going to go crazy still with 45 cars taking on the mountain.
It's not going to be easy. It is going to be chaotic, rest assured, but it is going to be fantastic nonetheless as they come down through Murray's Corner right now. Joey, I turn it over to you.
Rounding the 90 degrees of the final corner. It's always tough. It is always difficult at Bathurst, but we are racing on the mountain. Joey Morissette takes a peek to the inside for third, but Dayton Lowe up front stratifies the LMP3 field in the turn 1. They're side by side for 5th as they take the green flag in GT4. Justin Ream in control into turn 1. Ted Lowendick slotting in behind. It all seems pretty calm in single file right now, but we've only made it through one corner so far.
We've only made it one through one corner, and we haven't had a lot of the hill here at this point, but it looks like that LMP3 field going to keep things nice together. A little bit car off. I think that was Morissette just getting a little bit slideways coming through the corner. He's going to keep things together, though, as they charge up the mountain.
I think Doug Evans may have started from the pits. I've seen a few drivers starting from the pits, maybe thinking there's going to be some trouble on lap 1, but so far, so good. Up through Reed Park, Sulman Park, and McPhillamy Park coming up. A lot of parks up on the top of the mountain. Hopefully nobody parking it in the middle of the road. Single file in LMP3. Everybody trying to get their bearings, making sure they're not bouncing off any walls, as here we come into Skyline for the first time. This is when it gets really tough.
Yeah, this is very, very tricky. You've got to be checking your braking distance off of the car in front of you. You cannot push it too hard here at this point. But I've got to say, a lot of restraint showed here from the LMP3 field, and the same is true for the GT4s. Everybody doing exactly what they need to do.
A little bit of a lockup into Forest Elbow at the back of the LMP3 field, but other than that, very calm, very cool, and very collected. You can see the commitment required in the GT4 class, though. You saw the body roll on Justin Ream's car as he threw it down through the dipper. That's a guy who's very comfortable at Bathurst, and if you're Ted Lowendick riding behind him, you don't like to see him that committed on lap 1, because that means he might be running away.
Yeah, very well might. And Ted Lowendick also had a little bit of a hold up there as he came down through the corner, the rear end of the car stepping out as they come down under the Armor All Bridge right now. Dayton Lowe, Jason Drescher building up a little bit of a gap with Daniel Cranfus, with Joey Morissette about 1.5 seconds behind.
And this series is often known for absolute craziness, especially when you get those traffic interactions. And we will get some of those today, But I think until then, it's going to be a race of survival as Michael Fowler spins it out of the final corner. I believe he did the same at Rudskogen last week, spun very early, had a great comeback, but I don't think he wanted to do that again this week.
No, I don't think he did either. Probably just a little bit over eagerness. It's only about, well, it's 117 degrees Fahrenheit out on track right now. So I was going to say it could be a little bit of cold tires, but I think it's probably overheated tires here at this point.
That is a hot New South Wales day. Only 74 degrees track temp as Dayton has to go a little bit defensive there coming up the hill. Drescher actually takes a peek to the outside coming into the cutting, but he had to slot back in line. Now up over the top of the hill, Drescher very, very close. He's got a nose within about a quarter of a car length, but it's going to be so difficult to make a move until you get to the Conrad Straight.
Yeah, there's really not an opportunity coming up and down the hill here at this point. It sounds like, though, as they come down through the dipper, we've got a replay. Kwok Nin had a little bit of problem farther back through the field.
Yeah, it wasn't just Michael Fowler. Here comes Kwok Nin up through the cutting, getting on the brakes. Could have been far worse. Could have been a bigger impact, but it was a bigger impact as he backed up directly in front of one of the Throttle Thursday drivers. I believe it was Greg Doucette. And that was not ideal for either of those two drivers.
No, it certainly was not, and that's one of the things that you have to try to fight. Oh, Greg Doucette live had a little bit of a problem coming down through Skyline and into the S's.
He's got to get going. Here comes Justin Ream in the GT4 field. Greg does a good job of getting out of the way, but he's got to figure out what to do here. Do I just park it and let the whole field by? He says that's the far safer answer than getting back up to speed.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the worst call there from him. I mean, just doing the right thing, the gentlemanly thing there to do. It may be terrible and absolutely demoralizing to see the whole field just streaking on by you, but it is the right thing to do.
Yep, Robert McGeehan's going to get by eventually. Gary Gainesville, Niall Drake, and Will Jennings, they're still coming. And eventually, Greg Doucette finally sees clean air and finally gets back going. But it's also going to be more frustrating for him because just as he let all those GT4 cars by to be a little bit courteous, he's going to have to pass all of them again.
Yeah, he is. He's going to have the outright speed on the straights, and he's going to have the outright speed when he's coming through the corners. Let's see what happened. Just caught a little bit. Oh, that's a big hit, catching a little bit to the inside there, losing it coming down through the S's.
And that is concrete right there. That is as hard as it gets. I do wonder if that was maybe a little bit of damage from what happened earlier, but we may never know because there's far more damage on that car now. It's good to see Sidrak Silva here. Saw him signed up when sign-ups originally went up for this series. Didn't get to race in round 1 or round 2 for that matter, so probably not going to be fighting for the championship, but signed up for this series for a reason, wants to go LMP3-GT4 racing, and he's done a solid job of it so far. P5 in his first qualifying, down to P6 right now, but still pretty solid as Steven Martinez gets to join the fray of LMP3 drivers with trouble. A little bit less trouble than we've seen so far, though. A little bounce off the Falcon tires.
Yeah, just up down through Forest Elbow, just a little bit of oversteer there, probably a little over-eager coming on to the throttle as, oh my goodness gracious, Callan Tobin here right ahead, and behind Jean-Sebastien Bedard and Maxime David as some LMP3s try to work their way on through. It is possible to go 2-1 contact!
That was highly committed from Callan Tobin, and he gets instant karma as Bedard comes back across the track. Tobin went for an opening, and that opening closed very, very quickly.
Yeah, closed without warning there. Jean-Sebastien Bedard getting a lot of that hit, trying to feel out the car here at this point to see if there's a problem on it. He's going to have to try to get himself back up to speed, and this is not a point where you want to be testing out to see if the car is going to hold underneath you.
When it's so difficult to pass at that part of the track, you do see aggression like that start to come out, but that was front to rear contact, and that does not typically end well. Bedard just trying to get it back to the pits, but here's what happened. Tobin saw the door open, and then it was very, very quickly closed, and a few more innocent bystanders came through. I think that was Sean Romig and a few others also got a bite out of that.
Yeah, catching a little bit, and that's a little bit of what you were talking about at the beginning of this race, Joey. Coming up and over the hill, this is a street circuit, as it were. We got a little bit more action, though, farther back in the field.
It's Gorman v. McLeish, if I'm not mistaken. No, it's Krauser. Just kidding. Two very similarly painted cars, but John Krauser gets through. Kenny lifts off a little bit, I think, through one of the flat-out corners of this track. And how about the other Gorman? Dan Gorman gets ahead of Matthew Zerwick. Almost contact, or maybe definitely contact, as he takes a little mini jump through the middle of the corner.
Yeah, it looked like he just got a little bit unsettled coming into the corner itself, and that threw him off as he went through it. And he is very slow there, trying to get that Mercedes-AMG back up to speed.
I think he was serving a slowdown, but also Matthew Zerwick pulled off right after that to bring it down pit lane. I wonder if he's maybe come into contact with the incident limit already. You only get 13 incident points in the PRL before you're forced to serve a drive-through. You only get 17 before you're disqualified altogether. That would be very unfortunate if that's Zerwick serving a drive-through already. We'll have to wait and see what the penalty reports say about that one. This is a very, very hot battle right now. Morissette, LaRue, and Sidrak Silva, all within draft range of each other, all very, very close. Silva's probably thinking, how can I get back to P5 where I qualified and maybe even fight for the podium, or P4 in my first race in the PRL?
I mean, that would be a statement of intent here from Sidrak if he's able to do that, but he's got to not be too overeager. Like that one I saw, though, coming down into Murray's corner, just a little bit of a poke to the inside to see if he could maybe force Vincent LaRue off the line, and then LaRue going to do the same thing here to Joey Morissette.
Let's see, how can a driver named Joey handle Bathurst? It never goes well for me, and it's going pretty well for him, but LaRue, a solid exit out of turn 1. He's going to be in the draft down one of the longest straights on this track. Turn 2 at Quarry coming up. It's not a heavy braking zone. It is a passing zone if you try, but it does seem like Morissette a little bit faster in a straight line, a little bit lower downforce, and almost a little bit of a kiss from LaRue coming into the braking zone.
Yeah, I don't think Vincent was expecting just how much he was going to check up in front of him, and that really caught him off guard. Side by side, back down forth through the field. This is Cade Smith and Teddy Malone, Dick.
Pepsi versus Banana. Who's going to win? Arcade Smith ends up winning. No real fight there. I think Ted saw him coming, lifted out to not cause too much trouble, and that's going to be Cade up into P2. It's a Mercedes battle all throughout the field, as now it's Sean Romig and Joshua Burke. Both of them have a little bit of front-end damage from that Bedard and Kalen Tobin incident. It seems to have evened out for both of them, but they've got Adam Ostrich right behind in a clean Porsche with no damage whatsoever, looking to pounce.
Yeah, and he's got a pretty good line here coming through Murray. He's going to get a little bit offline, didn't get onto the throttle nearly as quickly as I thought he was going to be able to. Now, here comes Burke. Burke looks like he got the one coming across the start-finish line to be able to get that run. Let's see if he can carry that on here coming onto the mountain straight. If he's able to do that, he'll be very quick.
You do have to remember, this is an open setup series. Drivers can choose. Do you want to prioritize high speeds and low downforce on the straights, or do you want to prioritize low speeds and downforce going up through the mountain? Joshua Burke clearly prioritizing straight line speed, but clears himself on Sean Romig, ends up in the wall. Adam Ostrich goes through, and Romig gets another bite out of that for that matter, but yet again, two GT4 competitors fighting over the same piece of room, and it ends in instant disaster.
I need to see another replay of that to be able to tell for sure exactly who was at fault, but one way or the other there, you got two drivers trying to compete for the same piece of real estate, and that's never going to work out.
Eric Kulaga slotting in line behind Michael Fowler. Remember when Michael Fowler spun on his own on lap 1? I'm starting to think this might be a conspiracy, DJ. I think he's spinning early to get out of trouble, and then he avoids everything that happens in front of him. But here's another look at Joshua Burke and Sean Romig and the hellacious impacts that ensued.
Yeah, I got to say there, I think that was Burke in the 911 just moving over to the left a little bit more than he needs to. I think he probably thought he was clear. Maybe the spotter told him he was clear, and he moved back over. Oh, we got an LMP3 without a front clip here.
I believe that is Nicholas Karangis, but Maxime David is run into trouble. We just saw him coming down pit lane, and he decided to turn the Bathurst Hill into a little bit of a Formula Drift course. Couldn't quite overcorrect it and get back going, and ends nose first in the concrete.
Oh, and another big incident coming up and over the hill right now, down through the S's. Multiple GT4s involved as your leaders came through on the LMP3s.
Oh, lots of drivers towing back to the pits. Cade Smith gets back by Ted Lowendick, but are we about to see a little bit of interaction? Joey Morissette backing up across the track, sending bodywork up into the air, but he is fully blocking the track. He's stuck in the wall. He's got to tow back because the rest of the field's coming quick, and he almost collected whoever that was coming through. I believe Michael Fowler.
Yeah, I think it was as well. Now it looks like he's clear, but as you said, bodywork spewing off of that car.
Was not. Where is everybody coming from? The track goes the other way, guys. Morissette backs it directly in front of Eric Kulaga. Jason Drescher and Doug Evans coming together. Remember when I said this was going to be a calmer race, DJ? Well, that is going out the window.
Words of Representative Joe Wilson, you lie. Here they go down into the cutting, or the chase rather, and that was an overeager LMP3 if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, that's Jason Drescher trying to get by Sean Burke, and now how does Doug Evans get involved in this? Doug was nowhere near this, and I don't know. It looks like he wasn't involved at all. Maybe that was a case of trading paints causing us some trouble. But here comes Jason, and yeah, just a big old bonk.
Yeah, big old bonk here. We're going to keep an eye on the GT4 as well as they work their way back around. Now we're going to check back in. This is Jason Drescher trying to recover a little bit. Going to take a little bit of an eager look around the outside there, coming through Quarry Bend. Going to make it work, but clearly having a mission to get back up through the field.
He is on a mission. I hope it's not a suicide mission because, as I said, you've got to be careful. 13 incident points only. That's going to be 4 for Jason. And maybe a potential other for loss of control. But Vincent LaRue has now run into trouble of his own. Sidrak Silva up on the podium in his PRL debut as LaRue loses seconds upon seconds and had some trouble of his own coming up over the hill. And now he's got a slot in line behind some GT4 traffic for the rest of the run down the hill. But here's what happened to LaRue.
All right, this is Vincent LaRue trying to make some moves up at the top of the hill. That's going to be right at about Solomon Park, and you've just got to have patience if you're an LMP3. I know there's opportunity, and it may look like you can get that move, but it is always going to shut on that door.
And there's Dan Gorman in the Mercedes GT4. He's heavily damaged now. Those Mercedes, they're the most popular GT4 car in the field, but they have just been LMP3 bait today. Everybody has just wanted to wreck them any chance they could get, so if you're still a Mercedes out there, if you're still running, I'd say get scared because there's still 21 minutes left to go in this race that you're going to have to survive.
Yeah, you're still going to have to do that, and we may see this LMP3 field work their way through the GT4s once again. So very, very difficult there for that. Now, we do have that battle that has continued on here. Adam Ostrich and Carter James. This is for 4th in the GT4 field.
It's amazing how small that Porsche looks. It's not actually that small, but in comparison with how wide that Mercedes is, it looks like a mini car. So it even looks like the underdog, as it is the underdog, literally.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it's not a tiny car. I've seen that GT4 RS Club Sport many, many times up close and personal, and that came in not a little bitty car, but the Mercedes just towers over anything that comes around it.
Imagine if we put the BMW next to it, it would literally look like the miniature car. But Adam Ostrich doing a great job in that thing. I don't believe they have ostriches in Australia. I believe they have emus, so maybe he needed to change his name. Maybe he'd be doing even better.
Maybe indeed. Then, emus did defeat the Australian Army back in the times before World War II, but coming wrong there over McPhillamy Park. That's an easy mistake to make.
Speaking of BMWs, Niall Drake, the latest victim. He's going to try and get it down the hill, taking advantage of the asphalt runoff there, but I think he saw that there were a few cars coming by, some LMP3 traffic, and he said, it's probably better if I park it here and wait for just a moment. But there's still inter-GT4 battles, despite the fact that we've lost, I think, almost 10 of them to LMP3 violence. There's still a battle for P11 right now. Gary Gainesville, Tim McLeish, and Duncan Staroska. All of them have had no trouble whatsoever. They're all sporting perfectly clean GT4 cars right now, and they're all in 3 different manufacturers. It's a beautiful sight here for P11.
Well, it's a beautiful sight, but it's Bathurst, and there's still some LMP3s to come through on by, so let's not jinx it here at this point. There's still 20 minutes left to go in this race, as does look like Gainesville, though, is going to get a little bit of a good run. That McLaren, normally known as having some pretty good straight-line speed, going to try to maximize that as we've got some side-by-side. Drescher and LaRue down into Murray's hop in the curve.
Looking like a V8 supercar there as Jason Drescher gets by. LaRue's going to try and fight it back, though, taking a peek to the outside into turn 1. It's tough to make an outside move work in a 90-degree corner. LaRue's going to try his best to make it happen and slot back in the draft coming down the mountain straight. How low is the downforce on that car? How slippery is that Ligier LMP3? It's a little bit faster than Drescher in the draft, but once again, he's going to be forced to go the long way around.
He's going to be forced to go the long way around here at this point. Let's see. Not able to make it play again, and they're going to stay in line.
Got to replay Nicholas Salapoutis. Welcome to the club, Nicholas. to the LMP3 trouble battle, but Michael Blaze was the cause of it, loses it directly in front of Salaputis, and nothing Nicholas could have done there, totally blind.
Yeah, you've got to feel a little bit bad for Salaputis there. He was just coming down the hill, minding his own business, and Blaze just stopped in the middle of the track, probably trying to take a toe and get out of the way, but unfortunately just no way to get around that.
Ride from on board him. Yeah, you couldn't see Michael Blaze until he was there, and then by the time you react to that, human reaction time is about 0.2 of a second. There was probably 0.2 of a second between him and Michael Blaze there. There was nothing he could do.
Yeah, really nothing at all, unfortunately. Just wrong place, wrong time, not able to get out of the way. Again, you got to feel bad for him.
That's one unfortunate thing, by the way, that I've learned. There's a community of people, if anybody at home is interested, who build their own Jeopardy games on Discord and play them. And when you're trying to figure out the buzzer on that, you realize that human reaction time cannot go below 0.2 no matter how hard you try. And that's especially frustrating in racing as well.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is. But look at this battle for 10th in the GT4 category. Kainzo McLeish, I'll get that right eventually.
Duncan.
And Carter, Duncan, there we go. And James, all fighting their way up through a 4-car battle in the GT4 category.
And Carter James not actually in 13th legitimately. He's off strategy, made his pit stop a couple of laps ago, or exactly 1 lap ago, as his fellow Mercedes Ted Lowendick is doing the same thing. He's going to blow by Duncan Staroska on the straight. He's going to get by before they even make it to the corner, I think. Actually, not quite. Duncan's going to keep fighting it. He might not know that they're on 2 different strategies, and Carter gets turned, going around the outside of Staroska, going off strategy, ending up in the pack, ends up losing him. 10 seconds now.
Oh my goodness gracious, everything coming to naught for these drivers, even within their own class. They're getting their elbows out in areas that you don't necessarily need to. Just heartbreak there.
I do wonder now, Ted Lowendick down pit lane, Brett Punkari down pit lane. Are they going to start getting worried that potentially in the battle of passing some drivers who they were ahead of in terms of pace, are they potentially going to have some trouble in having to pass them again? Battle for P4, Jason Drescher and Vincent LaRue, they've both had some trouble of their own. They've both had some trouble with each other, and now they're going to do battle with a flock of GT4 cars and lapped LMP3 cars in front. This could get spicy again into the same corner where they almost came together in the previous lap.
Yeah, this could get very spicy, very interesting. Oh my goodness gracious,
Oh,
down
and
into
LaRue.
first elbow. Yeah,
LaRue
lock
loses
up there.
it on his own, spins it on his own, and getting a little bit of target fixation, I think, coming up on Michael Kulaga there. And that makes things a little bit easier. No battle in traffic. Drescher gets to deal with it on his own.
Yeah, he's going to be able to handle it out here at this point, so no problem there from him. Now here they come, and this is the part where you're an LMP3 driver that you're happy to be able to pass these cars down on those straightaways.
Just hoping that as they come up over the top of the hill there, that camera embedded in the grass, I was fully expecting to see a car getting turned over there. But Justin Ream, GT4 leader down on pit lane. Cade Smith's going to follow him in. It's a wide open pit window in GT4. You've seen some drivers opt to come down early and find clean air and clean road, and you've seen some drivers wait a little bit longer because they think they're going to be okay either way. And if Justin Ream's picking that strategy, you have to imagine that it's probably going to be the ideal one with 14 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think it probably is. And part of that is going to be dictated by the fact that he is going to be able to get out of some of that LMP3 traffic. That's probably why he wants to do it.
Let's see what's going to be low and dictated by Ted's strategy. He's going to stay out. He made his pit stop 1 lap ago. John Krauser is going to bring it down pit lane. And where is Ted going to cycle out? Is he going to be 3rd behind Cade Smith? Is he going to be 1st ahead of Justin Ream even? I think that's going to be a little bit too big of an ask. Ream gets out easily in the lead, but it's a battle. Cade Smith, shorter run at a pit lane, but he's going to be lower on straight line speed, accelerating out of the pits. And here comes Ted Lowendick at full bore.
Ted Lowendick's going to be at full chat. He's also going to get a little bit of the draft here as they come, but I don't think Ted's got the close in on him. Ted's still about 6/7 of a second back.
Not going to be close enough to make a move this time. I also shouldn't have said full bore. I should have been very relevant, and I should have said full bananas, but I wasn't fast enough for that.
Ah, you missed your chance on that one, Joey.
I missed a banana joke, DJ. I can't believe myself.
I know. I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not going to lie. I'm a little bit disappointed, but we'll get past it.
If you tune in to the PRL Grand National Series on Wednesday nights, I do have to tell the viewers full disclosure, I am teammates with Ted Lowendick. I race in the other banana car when we're racing in our banana cars on Wednesday night. So I do have to be a little bit biased about that, and I might have to recuse myself if he ever gets into an incident in this series again.
Well, I will be your third-party arbiter to be able to make that call, as my team I race with in Daytona, not a member of the PRL, so we're all good.
There we go. Yet, I should say. Yet.
We might have to get him in, yeah.
We might have to change that. We'll see what happens. This battle hasn't given up, by the way, mostly because none of these drivers have pitted yet. Gainesville has yet to bring it down pit lane. Tim McLeish has yet to bring it down pit lane, so they get to continue their battle on track, and they may bring a new buddy into the fray. As John Krauser in the Porsche leads this in the little mini Porsche, and he's going to have a Mercedes and a McLaren hounding him, I think, after they descend to the bottom of the hill.
Yeah, I think they will. This is going to be a little bit of a tight run here. If they can just keep this together, we ride on board the hood here of McLeish. Oh, but he got a little bit off coming down through Forrest's elbow in that corner right before, in contact with that Falcon tire barrier right on the outside. That's going to cost him a chance.
Tough stuff there for McLeish, and he's got to look behind him. That's Sean Romig, I believe, coming up on a strategy where he has made his stop already. He's going to be fighting potentially for the top 5 when everything cycles out. Leader in GT4, Adam Ostrich, has finally brought it down. Now things start to look a little bit more normal in that class. Justin Ream retakes the lead. Cade Smith and Ted Lowendick round out the podium. But where is Ostrich gonna cycle out? Will he be able to stay out ahead of Romig? It's a short stop. Looks like that answer is going to be pretty easy. And here comes Krauser and Gainesville and Tim McLeish. The fuel tanks are running totally dry, and everybody's got to bring it in.
Yep, you got to bring it on in here at this point. Come on in. As you said, Krauser down into pit lane, McLeish as well. Everybody opting to be able to take that stop. Remember, the longer you can run this, the less fuel you've got to put in the car, so that's going to be good.
What a day it could be for Justin Ream yet again. Last week made himself, or stickered himself in the PRL history books officially, finally, tying number 10 all-time on 18 wins. If he wins again today, he's going to be the only driver ever in the PRL to have 19 wins. There's drivers with 18 wins. There's a driver with 20 wins named Vincent Trepanier, but nobody else is on 19 wins, and Justin Ream would put himself 9th all-time if that happens, but we can't get too ahead of ourselves. The data doesn't come out until the race finishes, and we've still got a pit cycle for LMP3. Dayton Lowe, Sidrak Silva, and the rest of the family are in.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Jason Drescher here also bringing him down in right at this point. So a lot of these drivers opting to take that pit stop, and I wonder how much of this is dictated not only by the fuel tank, Joey, but just the ability to be able to get around traffic.
You do not want to be in this screenshot right here with LMP3 traffic, with GT4 traffic. There's many different flavors of getting held up that you can encounter in this combo today. But Vincent Leroux staying out for one extra lap. Daniel Cranifus doing the same. Probably not going to be in the fight for the podium unless there's more trouble for the other two, but anything can happen. Sidrak Silva still ahead of Jason Drescher. It's looking good for him to be P3 if nothing befalls him, but it's going to be a battle, I think, between Cranifus and Drescher, depending on how their pit stops come, likely a lap from now, to see who is going to stand on that final step on the podium. Leroux's just trying to survive getting around traffic, though.
Yep, just trying to survive. That's exactly the way to put it here, Joey, is they just try to get their way on by and not run into problems.
But there's problems right there. Tim McLeish, not deliberately causing problems, not doing anything wrong, but this is a track that was not necessarily designed for this kind of multi-class racing, and when you are stuck behind a GT4 car coming down the hill like that, you do get eternally frustrated, as I'm sure Vincent Leroux was there, and I'm sure Dayton Lowe was getting held up behind him for basically 2 corners as well. It's just impossible to do anything unless you go for something very over-aggressive that's likely going to take you both out.
Exactly, and it's frustrating when you're running in a similar class here, when you're all running GT3s, you're all running Australian V8 supercars around this circuit, and you still find yourself in trouble, let alone having to deal with a multi-class scrum like this there as we watch Leroux work his way by and come down into pit lane.
Daniel Cranifus is in, and Vincent Leroux are down pit lane. It's a difficult pit entry in and of itself. It's like 5 chicanes that you have to deal with. As if the rest of the track wasn't difficult enough, you got to navigate chicanes on pit entry. But Dayton Lowe retakes the lead now, totally comfortable, and all he's got to do is complete approximately 4 more laps, maybe 5 more laps, and he'll have his second win in the PRL. But the big race is going to be Daniel Kranifus in second. Is he going to get out ahead of Sidrak Silva? No, he is not. Just yet. He's going to come out ahead on track, but Sidrak's coming with a full head of steam yet again. Is it going to be enough to get by, or is Kranifus going to be able to hang on?
Well, let's see here as they work their way by the red GT4. Sidrak Silva's not going to be close enough. Kranifus doing a great job of being able to break that draft. A little bit of what we were talking about before the broadcast even started, the dragon move that we often see. Oh, and how great is this? We can say the name again on iRacing that we see in IndyCar, kind of breaking that draft as much as possible. Great heads up there from Kranifus.
Michael Blaze, though, causing a little bit of trouble for Kranifus. Doesn't have to get out of the way just yet. And speaking of IndyCar blue flag rules tell you don't have to let anybody by if they're not a lap down. But with some GT4 traffic in the mix as well, this is getting very, very hot now. Kranifus desperately wants to get by Blaze. You saw him peek a nose to the inside of McPhillamy Park. That's not an often place to get past, but he made it work cleanly. Sidrak Silva did as well, and he's going to be in the draft if he can stick with him coming out of the cutting onto the back straight.
Yeah, he's just got to stick with him here at this point. That's exactly the way to think about it if you are Sidrak Silva. Just stay with it. Oh, the McLaren breaking things up there a little bit. That could run a little bit more difficult, and he's going to lose some time here coming down through Forest Elbow.
Not the cutting, Forest Elbow. DJ was right, mixing up my corners there. But Sidrak is still closer than he was before the pit cycle came around. He was over a second behind Kranifus before the pit cycle happened. Now he is at least within draft range for a moment. Going to lose even more, though, here as he gets by Gary Gainsel. He's actually going to succeed while Kranifus gets stuck behind Gorman. This was big for Silva. He's going to lose more, though, not being able to get to the outside of Gorman. He's still within 0.3 of a second, but he could have been even closer.
Yeah, could have been even closer, but if he can keep the pressure up here at this point, maybe he can force Kranifus into an error.
And look who's coming, Jason Drescher. In one lap of Silva and Kranifus getting held up, Drescher has made up over a second, and he's thinking, I could get second back here. I was faster than both of these guys by a decent margin in qualifying. We know Kranifus has been aggressive at times in this race. With only a few laps to go, if he gets the opportunity, you're going to see him fight for the podium again.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he gets himself up and into this conversation here before things are said and done. Let's see what he's able to do, though, as they come around now through the cutting. Be able to roll that speed as much as possible. And when you're coming up the hill like this, Joey, and down the hill as well, it's all about just keeping it together, keeping close, and not pushing ahead.
Oh, that was pushing definitely for Sidrak Silva, knocking the wall down a little bit. I don't think he got any damage from that, but he was on the absolute limit of how much you can afford to bounce off a concrete wall and still get away with not too much damage. It's interesting watching them all coming down the hill here. You see Drescher third in line back there. He's absolutely pushing. He's ragged right now. He's on a comeback. But Silva and Kranifus just totally smooth, not pushing it too hard coming down the hill, and not losing much on each other, although Silva locks it up a little bit coming out of the corner, and that's going to scupper his momentum once again onto the back straight.
Yeah, he's just not finding this right. He's not finding the opportunities to be able to get that close in that he really needs to. And with only 4.5 minutes left to go in this race, with lap times at about sub 2 minutes here, he's got to be careful because he's going to have 2-3 laps to try to get this to run.
The battle for 9th in GT4 isn't over, by the way. We're going to let you look at that at the bottom of your screen. Gainsel versus Gorman, the battle of the Gs. I think they're going to resolve that before turn 2 comes around, though. But Silva, he's got to start thinking, how do I get that little bit closer? It doesn't seem like he's actually that fast in a straight line. So if he wants to make full effect of the draft, I think he's got to get a little bit closer, get within maybe 2 or even 1.5 tenths coming out of turn 1, because without that, he may be a little bit too far back to make that move into turn 2.
Yeah, he's got to start trying to find those areas to push, to try to take advantage, to try to get himself up into a position to make this work. He cannot wait around anymore.
Oh, very deep on the brakes into turn 2 there. As I was saying, differences in setups in this series. You may opt for a higher downforce setup. It's going to be faster in the corners. You could be later on the brakes, but you're going to be slower in a straight line. Or you go for a low downforce setup, fast in a straight line, which there are 2 very big ones at Bathurst, but you start to hurt a little bit in the braking zones and through parts of the track like this. I think that's probably what we're seeing with Silva here. He's a little bit slower through the fastest portions of the track as they get by Kalen Tobin, I believe there, actually one of the Porsches. Yet another scary moment that's going to bring Sidrak in with about 2/10.
Yeah, he's going to be right up behind here at this point, and if he can get the good run off of Forest Elbow, maybe hope for that Porsche up in front to slow down Kranifus a little bit. That's Brett Puncari, I believe, and indeed, that's exactly what he needs. He's going to be slowed up through Forest Elbow. It's now time for Sidrak Silva to pounce.
Brett Puncari acting like the Porsche pace car a little bit there through no fault of his own, but Silva within 1/10 of a second now. Kranifus using the draft of Gorman there. Pulls out at the last second. Silva gets blocked off. No track for him, but he pulls to the inside, coming through the dogleg, and they could be side by side coming into the chase. This is going to be the battle for second. Kranifus later on the brakes, though. Drescher dives it to the inside. He's not going to make it happen, but he said to Sidrak Silva, I'm still here. I'm second in the championship, and if you open that door again, I'm getting by.
I think Drescher's here the one to watch, because I agree with your assessment from earlier that I think Sidrak Silva's running a little bit more of a comfortable setup to be able to get up and over the mountain, and that's really costing him on these long straightaways. And I think Drescher here, but he gets held up behind the Porsche again. He's going to have to wait another lap.
Yeah, Matthew Zerwick, the unfortunate bystander there. Zerwick's actually going to have a little bit of trouble with one of the Mercedes in a battle of his own. But a little bit too much separation in LMP3 this time. Everybody starts to think, what can we do over the hill? How do we wait? How do we re-rack and potentially go for a move again? But the battle for P5, Carter James past Sean Romig now. At least for now, though, as there's some LMP3 traffic coming through that's going to make sure that is even spicier. That LMP3 traffic, by the way, is the traffic you saw on your other monitor with Drescher and Silva coming by. Drescher finds the opening, though. Silva gets parked behind Sean Romig, and Drescher, with a savvy move, takes third place.
Oh, he's got to be careful here, though, coming up through Sullivan Park, able to make it work around the Slaughter Mercedes AMG. The question is, now that he's been released behind Sidrak Silva, he's probably going to have one more lap to try to chase down Daniel Kranifus, and is he going to be able to do that?
1.5 seconds. I think he's got to hope for a little bit of traffic, and he might get exactly that. Kranifus actually quite slow coming down the hill. I don't even think that was traffic. I think that was just a little bit of a bobble, and he lost the rhythm. But Drescher now within 0.7 of a second. It's going to be within draft range. He's going to get that little bit closer, and they're going to reach a little bit more GT4 traffic. That's one of the Porsches coming up, I believe. That's Adam Ostrich, and Kranifus might catch him in an awkward place.
Very well might. Let's take a look at this replay, because this was so brilliantly heads up from Drescher. Little bit elbows out, but made it work.
Little bit elbows out, but at least it was elbow to side and not elbow to rear ends. We've seen that move end badly. I think that was a very savvy move from Drescher. He's probably pretty proud of himself after that one. I think he's going to put that in the personal highlight reel. But there could be one more, as we're going to take the white flag this time. 0 seconds on the clock, and the checkered flag comes out. Next time Dayton Lowe crosses the line. Jason Drescher, though, the real battle is for second, and he has one more time around Bathurst to make up 0.9 of a second and take his second of the season.
Yes, he does, and that's going to just solidify his place in the points, and that's the kind of run you've got to have here. If you make mistakes, to come back and be able to finish on the podium in a P2 and a P3, regardless of that, great heads up.
P11, 3 wide between GT4s and LMP3s. Josh Kimball gets through, but Will Jennings is coming up on Gorman to the inside into the dogleg. Coming into the chase, Gorman gets turned by Kalen Tobin, I believe, or one of the Aston Martins. And that is going to be heavy damage on the Porsche of Gorman. Almost made it through the race, but on the final lap, ends in heartbreak in the wall.
And you hate to see that. You've gotten through everything here at this point, and to have it all go to naught on the last time of asking, just the worst possible way to have it happen.
This is going to be the final salvo for Jason Drescher. They've got one of the lapped LMP3 cars coming up. I believe that's Michael Kulaga. Is he going to get out of the way, or is he going to give a little bit of a draft to Daniel Kranifus inadvertently? I don't think Kulaga's getting out of the way. I think he's interested in finishing this race, and Kranifus is going to use that to his full advantage, getting some draft of his own. Kulaga is going to pull out of the way now, but not after giving some critical draft to Daniel Kranifus, and I think that's that battle resolved. But out of the final corner, for the second time this season, for the second time in only 3 races, Dayton Lowe is a winner in the Precision Racing League. crowning himself in LMP3 at Bathurst. That is the end of the day for him. A hard day's work and a very, very well-deserved win. Out of the final corner, Daniel Kranifas, well done by him as well. Didn't make a single mistake, picked up the pieces when there were mistakes ahead. He's going to finish second, ahead of the comeback kid, Jason Drescher. One more lap maybe and he would have had a shot, but he's still going to be happy with a 100% podium rate. Not quite as happy as that guy on your screen, Dayton Lowe, getting some very well-deserved Australian donuts. I don't even know where Justin Ream is on track right now. I think he's actually crossed the line, so he's on a little bit of a victory lap right now as Cade Smith crossed the line behind Dayton Lowe, but Justin Ream was ahead of Dayton Lowe, so he's got to do a whole lap all on his own.
All right, well, he's got to come back here at this point, but for a lap like this for Justin Ream, probably no LMP3s getting around him here at this point. He is going to be absolutely just cruising right now. This is a Sunday drive around one of the hardest circuits to drive in the world.
Yeah, this is one of those quirks of racing timing, because technically, despite the fact that it is a multi-class series, both classes are still racing on the same clock. So when Dayton Lowe crossed the line to take the checkered flag, that was the end of the race for every car behind him, including Cade Smith, who was directly behind him. Justin Ream was ahead of Dayton Lowe when he crossed the line, though, so he still has to complete this lap. And he could literally crash and park it and bring it back to the pits, and he would still win, but that's not a Justin Ream kind of thing to do. If it was a Justin Ream kind of thing to do, I bet he's trying to set the fastest lap right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what Justin's trying to do here at this point. Just that little bit of competitive streak here from Justin. Wouldn't be exactly surprised as here they come. He's going to come down through the cutting right now, bring it around.
So his fastest lap of the race right now, a 2:14.212. It's already the fastest lap of the race. He was a couple thousandths faster than Cade Smith and Ted Lowendick. But let's see as he brings it across the line. The win is a foregone conclusion yet again for Justin Ream. It's 3 wins in 3 races this season, 100% win rate. And in the PRL, it's his 19th win total. That puts him all on his own, 9th all-time in PRL wins. Justin Ream building himself a legendary career. And on the final lap, did he get the fastest lap? He did! The first driver in GT4 down to the 2:13s with a 2:13.9. How about making that a little bit sweeter for Justin Ream?
Oh, that's very good for him as we're ready for the results here around what was a chaotic race at Bathurst.
Dayton Lowe, you may think by his name, can he only win at Daytona? Well, he's clearly answered that question with a win at one of the most difficult tracks we're going to go to all season. Daniel Kranifas picks up a podium as well, alone for Rust Racing today, I believe. No Greg Seitz, but Jason Drescher behind him rounds out the podium, still in championship contention. Sidrak Silva knocked off the podium at the last second by a savvy move from Drescher, but still a performance he can be proud of. PRL debut P4, ahead of Vincent LaRue, and JP Alfonso in his LMP3 debut, P6 for him as well. Errol Urexoy did not wreck today, he finished P7. Michael Fowler pulled off yet another Michael Fowler comeback, and then Josh Kimball and Nicholas Karangis rounded out the top 10. They were also the last drivers on the lead lap as Steven Martinez went 1 lap down, and then the used car lot starts very, very quickly. The brothers Kulaga both 5 laps down. The brothers Throttle Thursday both 7 laps down. Michael Blaze, Nicholas Salaputis, Joey Morissette, Nicholas Collender, and Kwok Nin all ran into assorted amounts of trouble. Sean Mulholland and Corey Precker, neither of them actually got off the line to start this race, so ignore that they exist. Pretend I didn't even say their names. Justin Ream on a lap of his own by a technicality, but might as well have been totally dominant. Pole, fastest lap, and the win for Justin. 19th win in the PRL for him. Cade Smith, though, I believe his first podium in the PRL. Good to see him finally get the deal done. And once again, Ted Lowendick, a podium in that Mercedes. Adam Ostrich behind him. Carter James behind him. Then Romig, Punkari, Doyle, McLeish, and Jennings. Gonna start calling them the consistency crew. They're all still in the top 10 in the championship just because of consistency. Gainsel, Krauser, Staroska, Gorman, and Doug Evans round out the top 15. Matthew Zerwick, Dan Gorman, they both went 2 laps down. Joshua Burke ended up 7 laps down, and the used car lot consists of him, the BMWs of Niall Drake and Maxime David, and even more. Jean-Sebastien Bédard, Nathan Jennings, Kalen Tobin, and Robert McGeehan, I don't believe ever got off the line to round out the GT4 field. But after a total show of domination, we get to talk to a pair of total dominators. And first and foremost, Dayton Lowe. Welcome back. You won at Daytona to start the season. We thought that might be a little bit of luck based on your name, but you may be Bathurst Lowe now because you've won again.
I'll be honest here. I wasn't expecting to win this week, but I guess the car and track just fell into place. I was not expecting to win.
Well, how scary is it? Because this place, not really designed for this style of multi-class racing, but you still had to make it work. You still had to be patient. How difficult was it to survive these 35 minutes and keep that car totally clean?
This is probably one of the most white-knuckled races that I've ever done on this sim. Like, the amount of speed you take into some of these corners in this P3 is just insane. If you miss by 1 centimeter, you're done.
So Jason finished third today. You got another win on the board. That's going to be championship lead for you. We're a third of the way through the season. How are you feeling? Confident or still a long way to go?
There's so much longer to go. Jason is a really good driver, so it's not going to be easy by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll take the points when I can get them.
Well, Dayton, congrats on win number 2, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you. And shout out Aiden, Daniel. Y'all are going to win next race.
Aiden and Daniel, you heard it here first from Dayton Lowe, but before we get to them, we have to go to Justin, the guy who, it just wasn't good enough to get pole and the win. He had to go for the fastest lap on the final lap too, and he gets to talk to DJ Clark.
Justin Ream, another dominant performance there out for you on the track. Absolutely fantastic. I want to start at the end. Had a little something to prove there, put the fastest lap down on the last lap.
I was hoping for it. Yeah, that was kind of the goal, to be honest.
Well, you nailed it down, and you did an absolutely fantastic job here running around. I mean, we just heard from Dayton Lowe on how much of a white-knuckle race this was for him. How was it for you? I mean, being the slower class here around such a treacherous track.
Bathurst usually gives me a lot of anxiety. Adding LMP3s is definitely interesting, to say the least. But yeah, it's just an anxiety for, try not to hit the walls and then cause a crash or hit someone else. And yeah, it's not one of my strongest tracks, that's for sure. But it was still fun and it was a good race.
Well, a good race indeed. You get to carry on your winning ways when we head out to another Australian favorite in the form of Sandown. Speaking of crazy tracks for multi-class racing.
I hope so. Sandown's a lot of fun. I've never done it with multi-class, but I've done it with single class. And Sandown's a great track.
All right, my friend. Well, we look forward to seeing you there, and best of luck when we head out to the other Australian beauty.
All right, thank you. Take care, guys.
All right, Joey, I turn it back over to you, my friend.
Justin Ream getting out, and Daniel Kranifus is going to come in, second place in LMP3. First time we get to talk to you this season. Daniel, it was almost a little bit of a lonely race for you until the end. You had a little bit of a fight with Drescher and with Sidrak Silva.
Yeah, thank you guys. I think it's my best ever league finish with PRL. So yeah, thank you guys for broadcasting, and PRL guys are putting on a great show as usual. It was more exciting there at the end than I had intended. I made a big mistake. I thought I did well saving fuel. I stretched it out a lap longer than the rest of the lead group, but then I had a big mistake on the exit of pit road. I hit the pit limiter again, and I didn't realize why was I not going. I was stuck on the pit limiter, and then all of a sudden I saw 2 guys closing on me very quickly, and then I had a heck of an entertaining last couple of laps there after the pit stop trying to keep Sidrak and Jason behind. One more lap and Jason would have had me.
It certainly was entertaining, but next week we go to Sandown. We don't even get to leave Australia. Have you been practicing your Australian accent, and are you ready for next week?
Good night, mate. That's about as good as it gets. I have never driven Sandown, so I'm prepared to put in a ton of laps there this week to get ready to go. I did over 150 laps of practice at Bathurst to get going, so yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm enjoying the car and the series.
Well, Daniel, I think 150 laps of Bathurst, that's probably about 300 laps of Sandown, so good luck with that, and we'll see you next week.
All right, thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Daniel Kranifus coming home with P2. He says his best result in the PRL. I don't have the data to confirm that, but if he says this, it's probably true. Let's round out the LMP3 podium with Jason Drescher and DJ Clark.
Well, Jason, you had a little bit of trouble there earlier on in the race, but talk about the fight back up through the field.
Yeah, that was a blast, actually. This was definitely tough. I put a lot of focus on the Daytona 24. By the way, won LMP2 second split. But nonetheless, it was a great battle back, and I was happy to get third, quite honestly, after that mistake. So pretty happy with the results.
Well, you did an absolutely fantastic job. And talk about your mentality as you came back through. I mean, was it an all-out attack, or was it a situation where you kind of had to wait back and just kind of let things come to you?
You know what? It was a little bit of frustration with myself, of course. So I just focused initially on just getting clean laps, and then once I saw that I was kind of gaining a little bit of time, and then after the pits, it was all out attack from there.
Well, we head to another Australian favorite next time out in the form of Sandown. A little bit tighter, maybe not as quite as ridiculous, but how do you think it'll go?
Honestly, I have no idea. I have to learn the track, so it's going to be a long week.
Well, Jason, we wish you all the luck in the world when you get there, my friend. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
All right, Joey, I think we've got time for one more. It is the one, the only, Ted Lowendick.
And I've been told by producer Dustin Allis that this is going to be a grand finale. I'm waiting, and there it is. It came. It came in time.
It did. It did. That was a fun one, boys. That was fun.
How much did you pay for that?
It was 50% off, which I thought the original price was astoundingly expensive. It was like maybe $20, but it has this sweet feature where I can peel it down.
Yes.
So when you guys let me go, I can say I peeled out of here. It's a good time.
That's the only reason why you buy something like that. You gotta be careful though. This might be Race Spot After Dark, but this is it's kids show.
It's a kid show.
I guess I should ask you one legitimate question. You survived. Yeah. You finished on the podium. Do you want to drive Bathurst ever again?
No, I'm good. I got my one Bathurst race in for the year. No, I'm good.
Don't take that suit off until Wednesday night.
Oof, I don't know if I can wear it to work. That might be weird.
He'll be fine. Ted Lowendick, he's going to be wearing that banana suit in the streets of Columbus for the next 2 days. I wish him good luck. But DJ, it's time for even more prototypes. That may be the end of the LMP3-GT4 challenge for tonight, but don't fret because we've got double the action, double the prototypes coming up in a couple of moments. But before we get to that, though, we do have to remember Sandown next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. Is it going to be as fun as Daytona in the LMP2 GTP series, though?
I don't know, because it's not only Daytona, it's Daytona at night. There's not a lot better than that. We're ready to get going as qualifying's already underway for the GTP LMP2 field.
And it's been a historic season for the GTP LMP2 series. Yet again, just spin the wheel of the greatest tracks in the world for top-level prototype racing, and we've got them. Next week, we will be going to the Nürburgring combined layout with the Nordschleife. The vote on the PRL forums was won by the people who wanted to keep that in the schedule. So for the first time in, I believe, quite a while, we will be going to the full layout of the Nürburgring in the PRL. And DJ and I are both going to have to study up on our corner names, I think, to be ready for that. Right after that, it gets a little bit simpler. Sebring starts off the month of Sebring, then Spa, Aragon, Montreal, and Silverstone to round out a 9-round season. It is going to be absolutely fantastic, and it's been fantastic so far. Long Beach and Watkins Glen, two very different races. Daniel Harris, the dominant winner in race 1. Not quite so dominant at Watkins Glen, ended in a horrific crash for him. Pat Pelshaw ended up winning, and because of that, Pat Pelshaw leads the championship for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, certainly does. And some good battles farther back down through the field as well. Ryan Skalny, Eric Palacio, only separated by a single point, with Jeff Evans and Zach Ebert closing in there as well. Nathan Bartley and J.R. Williams not too back from that equation as well. So we've got to really keep our eyes through the entirety of the field, as this could be a very, very close championship all the way throughout.
It's not close in the team's championship, though. As you notice, 1, 2, 3 in the drivers' championship. Pelshaw, Diaz, Ovando. Those are the Precision Racing Esports blue drivers, so no surprise to see them at the top of the sheet, even with only 2 out of 3 drivers being able to score points in each individual race. SRT, they're holding on. Haven't quite had the results they wanted. Eric Palacio, their lead driver, but Dave Menino, J.R. Williams have shown a lot of potential so far this season. Fiercely Forward have shown a lot of potential as well. Daniel Harris won race 1. Hasn't gone quite as well for Aiden Young, unfortunately. He is sitting on a DNF in race 1 and a decent day at Watkins Glen, but still not the day he would have wanted. Precision Racing Esports Black, the secondary team, they're 4th ahead of Whataback, then Piston Pirates, the Podium Hunters, Echelon Simsport, Vice Motorsport, and Hyperion Racing. A lot of familiar names there round out the top 10 in the teams. Familiar names in LMP2 as well. Jack Hedgecox, last season's champion, very, very fast at Long Beach, totally dominant, but got beaten at Watkins Glen. Daniel Zeggers returned to victory lane in the PRL for the first time in 3 or 4 years and we've got a real championship fight in our hands in LMP2. That's not even considering Caleb Lehman and Joshua Chinsky and many, many others as you go down the list that could be in the fight in the driver's standings. And the team standings, for that matter, as well. They're pretty close. Go In Racing and SRT and the Precision Racing Academy, 13 points separating the top three. I'm no mathematician, but I don't need to be to tell you that's going to be very, very close all season long.
Yeah, this is going to be a fierce battle from very start to very finish of this series. I'm very much looking forward to it, as this series always seems to put on some of the best racing action. And all these drivers already experienced coming off of Daytona this past weekend. The iRacing 24 Hours of Daytona obviously taking place, so a lot of this is going to be drilled in muscle memory.
Yeah, the amount of laps that everybody had driven with practice and with 24 hours of racing, this is going to be rote memorization right now. You could close your eyes and you'd probably still be able to do this. We're watching Pat Pelshaw right now. He actually just put it on pole as he brought it across the line. His teammate Boris Ovando was on pole. He's now P2. But these Precision Racing esports drivers, I believe, I'm going to have to check the real data here, but I believe all three of them competed on the weekend over 24 hours, and they're going to be some of the most experienced drivers in the field.
Yeah, they're going to be very experienced. And I also want to give a shout out to some of our former drivers here on Monday night. The Cranky Esports team I had the pleasure of racing against in my split on the Daytona 24 Hours this past weekend. Kind of nice to see them as we were moving our way around. But right now, it is Pelshaw only by about 0.2 of a second over Boris Ovando. Michael Diaz very close there behind. Sorienso, Limon, and Gowan leading the way for the top three in LMP2.
I'm actually scrolling through the Precision Racing Esports Twitter feed right now to see how successful they were. Precision Racing Esports number 113, they actually won in GTD in split 15, but that was drivers you see on Tuesday night with Adrian Kakulis and David Mendonça and Kevin Simpson and Joshua Lawrence. There was a GTP car with Pat Pelshaw, Boris Ovando, Michael Diaz, and Taylor Funk, but I'm going to have to figure out where they actually finished because I only have an after 14 hours update right now, so I can't tell you where they finished yet.
All right, we'll have to see if we can get that information a little bit later on for you right now. But right now, we are watching the number 14 work its way around, trying to see if there's any speed to be gained. The LMP2 driver coming down through the bus stop. Saw a lot of incidents there over the course of the weekend, and a big wiggle for the 14 of Maltsev. And I think that may have been a little bit of an off track there for him.
Now, there's a big name you don't see in the LMP2 standings right now. Mr. Jack Hedgecox has not set a lap yet. That's legitimate of his speed, I think. He's down in P9 right now, not where he normally is. Josh Chinsky puts it up in P4. That's an expected starting spot for him. His teammate Caleb Lehman up into pole, but championship leader, defending champion Jack Hedgecox, you never see him with an 8 next to his name in qualifying.
No, you very, very rarely do. 8th place here at this point. Maybe just a little burned out from the weekend. Not entirely sure what's going on with him, but we will have to find out, as I am very surprised to see him that far down in the order.
There's also a GTP entry for Precision Racing Esports. Nathan Bartley, Jerome Bertiome, Lance Loomis, and Andrew Wood. A lot of those names in the field today. Daniel Zeggers puts it up onto pole in LMP2 by a very convincing margin. I think that tells us there is still speed left on this track. If you can find it, go in up to P4, but Hedgecox hard into the wall after clipping the grass in the bus stop, and he's going to start no higher than P9.
Oh, just pushed it a little bit too hard coming out of the bus stop. We're going to keep our eyes here on, though, Chip Michaels in 15th place in the number 63 LMP2 as he brings his way around right now. Looks like that's Charles Leclerc helmet, unless I'm greatly mistaken that he is sporting underneath that. Oh, no, excuse me, that's a Niki Lauda helmet that he is sporting. So Michaels trying to improve from a P15. Only got about 1 minute and 20 seconds left to do it, so this is going to be his last bite at the apple.
And he will have the time to do it, about 50 more seconds in the lap, but it's going to be very, very close. Chip was very fast at Watkins Glen last week, if I remember correctly. He had a strong day. Joshua Chinsky up to P2 in LMP2. It's looking good for a driver who won multiple races last season, but I'm looking for the data. Where did Chip Michaels qualify last week? Because I don't remember off the top of my head. He qualified P5, so I was right. He did have a very solid day last week, finished on the podium at Watkins Glen. 15th is not where he wants to be, but as he files onto the oval, turns 3 and 4 of the NASCAR oval for the final time, where can Chip put himself? Can he find 10 spots and match his qualifying result from last week? Here he comes.
Well, he's going to be on for a much better time here at this point. A 134.9, the time to beat for him. He's going to cross over the line. A 134.6. That's going to be an improvement, but only a couple of positions.
P11 outside of the top 10 for Chip Michaels. Boris Ovando puts it back on pole in GTP, beats his teammate Pat Pelsha. Anthony Dring's going to bring it to the line. Can he improve on P19? Below the apron, trying to find a little bit of speed. He does find 0.3 of a second, but that's only going to bring him up to P15 in one of the few Cadillacs in the field. The only Cadillac in the field, I should say. And what a funky qualifying session. There's so many names who just aren't where they should be. Daniel Harris, the fastest driver in a GTP car in qualifying, did not get a lap in qualifying. I don't know if he's going to start the race. I don't know if he's having technical issues, but we can only wait and see. What we do know, Boris Ovando, Pat Pelsha, Michael Diaz, hot off of being teammates in the Daytona 24 on iRacing. They are 1, 2, 3 in qualifying. Their teammate Nathan Bartley wasn't teammates with those three guys, not teammates with them in this series either, but he's going to start with them in P4. Then Aiden Young and Dave Menino round out row number 3. Solid runs for both of them, at least in qualifying. Ryan Skalny, P7. Jeff Evans has been pretty solid in qualifying this season. He starts P8. Bradley Holly hopes to hold on to a top 10 position this week alongside J.R. Williams. Then it's Eric Palacio, the lead SRT driver in the championship, alongside Nicholas Schwartz. And unlucky 13th went to Ryan O'Connor, who starts alongside Stephen Verity. Rust Racing Prototypes, they've done pretty well tonight so far. Anthony Dring and Zach Hebert on row 8. Mark Kalin and Darian Roy on row number 9. Nathan Ray starts alongside Ryan Reeves, Calvin Mayant, and Grigor Georgiev, a pair of Porsches, I should say, on row 11. Adam McDonald starts 23rd, and Daniel Harris, no qualifying lap for him. He will start 24th, and I do see him on the grid, so he is going to have an uphill battle ahead of him in the race today. Daniel Zeggers on pole for the second week in a row. He starts alongside Joshua Chinsky. Caleb Lehman was on pole for a good percentage of that qualifying session and just got dunked down at the end. He starts alongside Doug Sorrentino, looking for one of his best results in the PRL. And the Goen brothers start 5th and 6th alongside each other. We don't see that very often. Good to see them working together, or at least starting together in the third row. Wallace and Maltsev, P7 and P8. Jack Hedgecock's far lower than he ever is. He starts alongside Jeremy Carter. Then Chip Michaels and John Leedy round out the top dozen. And unlucky 13th ended up going to Blake Ziti, starting alongside Michael Belair, Hassett, Tabler, Carroll, and the first of the Chandlers, Reagan Chandler, round out the top 18. Then you've got Frankie Arvello making his season debut in this series, alongside the second of the Chandlers, Ryan Chandler, right behind his brother on the grid. Karsten Quinton, Nathan Mon, last two drivers to set qualifying lap times. Andrew Wood will start this race. I do see him on the grid, but he didn't get a lap in qualifying, nor did Chase Kaufman, nor did Chris Rabel, and nor did Edward Vardanesian. I don't see Edward on the grid, though. I also don't see Doug Sorrentino, so they've both got to rush and get out there because there's only a few seconds left on the clock before we start to roll, and we are rolling now.
Yeah, GTP field going to lead this around once again, and as we've seen a couple of times in the past, it is an Acura lockout here. The top 6, indeed, all in that Honda-based prototype. As they bring the car around right now, Acura going to be trying to see what they are able to do and see if they are going to be able to dominate here today.
If you would believe it, DJ, Boris Ovando, who is always rapid, who is always aggressive, has never started on pole before. Or has never started on pole before in a prototype. He started on pole once before in GT3 competition in the PRL, and for only the second time, Boris Ovando leads a PRL field to green, stratifying a couple rows deep, one by one into turn 1, but it's teammates side by side. Bartley and Pat Pelsha fight for third as LMP2 on the right side of your screen takes the green flag as well. They're almost 3 wide into turn 1. It's going to be far crazier as around the outside, I think that's Doug Sorrentino trying to make it deep. It's not going to work. He's got to slot back in line in 4th.
All kinds of drivers trying to sort themselves out here at this point as they go. Somehow the LMP2 field makes it through in the S's nice and easy. Now they're going to try to get everything sorted out by the time they get down into the West in the International Horseshoe, and there's a car spun around.
There's a little bit of trouble in the middle of the field. Didn't see who that was, but they were able to get going fairly cleanly. Nobody spun around, nobody falling to the back of the field. Matt Carroll started from pit lane. He's going to avoid any trouble that way, but he's got an uphill battle ahead of him. All things considered, though, very clean going so far. A little bit of grass kicked up by the back of the LMP2 field as we get onto the oval for the first time. Difficult corner here. Easy to lock up the brakes, easy to get into somebody, but it's all good in LMP2. Coming into the Le Mans chicane for the first time. Do you call it the bus stop? Do you call it the other one? Either way, it's treacherous, and they're going to tackle it for the first time on cold tires.
And doing the right thing there, keeping it nice and clean, keeping it single file. You do not want to be going too wide down through the bus stop at any point during the course of this run.
We saw too wide through the bus stop at Watkins Glen, and very, very scarily last week as somebody totally misses the corner. Couldn't even tell who that was as they were moving about 200 miles per hour. It was Michael Belair, who decided to make a new track there and said, you know what, I'm probably going to avoid some trouble by doing that. Ryan Skalny and Dave Menino side by side into turn 1. Dave Menino up into P6, Skalny back down into P7, Caleb Lehman up into P2 in LMP2. As it is all kicking off, there's a simplicity to this track. There's only a couple of real braking zones, but it's really leading. It always leads to some fantastic racing as you see Daniel Harris in the Porsche around the outside of, I believe, one of the Rust Racing cars. He didn't get a qualifying lap in. Harris has to fight forward. He can do nothing else.
Yeah, he's got to just be looking ahead. Look down to the inside there for another one of the Porsches as they come down and through. That's Hebert trying to be able to get a little bit of a move on Verity. Not going to play out through the Western Horseshoe as they come down through turn 6.
That is absolutely incredible for Daniel Harris, by the way. Started 24th in GTP, and in the space of one lap, he's already up to 16th. That is 8 spots gained in one lap, and he's only moving forward. But the focus isn't on him. The focus is on Verity. As Verity, he rolls along with Hebert in the draft. It's Porsche v. Porsche. They're theoretically equal in most ways, but just like the LMP3-GT4 series, this is an open setup series, and you can choose. Do you want to reward yourself in a straight line, or do you want to reward yourself in the corners? Stephen Verity just rewarded Zach Hebert with a free position.
Yeah, he did. Got a little bit squirrely there coming out of it, and there he's going to let another driver on by, as it looks like that's a problem there for him.
I think he had to serve a slowdown, got a little bit too far over. Ray gets by, and he's got to let even more by, but Pat Pelshot of the lead into P1 to the inside of his teammate Boris Ovando. The door was wide open, and Pat Pelshot, setting the fastest lap, sets the tone as the #1 driver in this team.
Yeah, and that's tricky to do down to the inside of turn 1. The more traditional running line there is going to be to the outside. That's a little bit where you want to go. We're going to take a look at the replay here of that move.
What a savvy move there. Boris, I think, holding to the outside, trying to make it happen, but did not work out for him. But Nathan Ray in trouble. Boris Ovando in trouble as well. Big trouble. Anthony Dring involved as well. Calamity in the middle of the GTP field. And I do wonder if the lead car involved in that, Boris Ovando, had anything to do with it.
He very well may have. I'm not entirely sure. Let's take a look at the replay. This is Dring. Oh, there's the contact.
Yeah, Dring and Ray come together. I believe that's Palacio. Calvin Mayant goes pinballing off the wall as well. But curiously, not a Boris Ovando to be seen in all of that. So I have no idea what could have happened to Boris. I don't know if that was a typical Boris Ovando internet issue. It would appear that it was absolutely not. Almost takes out his teammate with him. A little bit of a bobble into the horseshoe and nearly takes his teammate Pat Pelshot with him.
Oh, if you thought the chaos was going to be limited just to the circuit of Bathurst tonight, you are clearly mistaken. Bradley Holly, Nicholas Schwartz now into it.
And for once, Bradley Holly wasn't part of the chaos in this series, and he prepares to have his teammate behind him. Schwartz lifts off early, though. No threat there. Look only 3 cars back, though. Daniel Harris is coming up to this battle, as Mark Kalin has ended up on pit lane. I don't know if that was deliberate or if he just spun. We'll have to wait and see. But Daniel Harris is enjoying this right now. Side by side ahead of him, Ryan O'Connor and one of the SRT cars. Harris is licking his lips right now for 2 easy positions if these guys continue to hold each other up.
Yeah, they're going to try to fight here a little bit more down to the inside. They go. Palacio trying to hold off in a little bit of an attack from behind as there are 2 drivers trying to get into it there from behind Palacio right now. That's O'Connor and Harris, as you said earlier.
Yeah, Harris forced to go the wrong way around, and he gets together with Ryan O'Connor. A little bit of contact coming back onto the oval. Sorry, Mark Kalin, we're not going to get to see how you embarrassed yourself. We almost just saw Daniel Harris and Ryan O'Connor end their races early.
My goodness gracious, everybody's got their blood
we have to see Mark embarrass himself anyway. We can't get away with not seeing that, but there it is.
Oh, yeah,
that's all on producer Dustin there. We didn't want to do that to you, Mark.
Yeah, we were going to be nice and cautious there about that for you, Mark, but unfortunately we had to. We just felt like we had to.
Oh, big trouble. That is Daniel Harris coming out of the bus stop. Did he spin coming out of the bus stop, or was that a slowdown? We'll have to wait and see, but could this be potentially the Daniel Harris of last season coming out again with a little bit of frustration? It was definitely a slowdown, letting people by, but in the space of one lap, that's Daniel Harris losing so much progress that he'd gained already.
Yeah, he was moving his way up forward. Now we've got a little bit of a fight here. This is Gowan and Sorrentino trying to start themselves, Gowan and Hedgecox, who's on the attack from a bad qualifying position.
And you see Chinsky in the back there falling back, losing 4 spots on a slowdown through the bus stop. It is so critical to not extend the track limits through there because that slowdown hurts so bad in the highest speed part of the track. And Joshua Chinsky, who started on the front row of this race, is now down to P7, P8, or even P9. He's so deep in the field now. But Jack Hedgecox has done exactly the opposite. He has done Jack Hedgecox things. Had a messy qualifying. P9 is lower than he's probably honestly ever qualified in this series, but he got his head down, has made moves, has taken advantage of mistakes, and he's back up into the top 5.
Yeah, he's right where he wants to be here at this point, so that's going to be good running for him. He's got to be pretty pleased with how he's running and how he's feeling about everything. Now, he's still got a lot of room to make up. I mean, he's still about 3 seconds off of the leader there of Daniel Zegers, but 3 seconds here at Daytona with 37 minutes to go, that's not out of the realm of possibility to catch back up.
Skalny v P7. Who's going to win this one? Skalny and Williams. JR to the outside. It's Acura versus Porsche. The Acura typically touted as being faster in a straight line, but with open setups, you can make your car a little bit slipperier, or you can go for the downforce. And Williams around the outside in turn 1, far later on the brakes, almost pulls it off, but it's just too long of a way around, and Williams has to slot back in line. But that was so aggressive on the brakes, almost made it happen, as yet again they're side by side. Ryan O'Connor and Hebert sort things out before the International Horseshoe, but it's crazy all through the top dozen.
Yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous here at this point. Hebert trying to close in behind, only 0.2 of a second back. Now, this is going to be Porsche versus Acura. There's going to be different strengths and weaknesses of those two cars. The Acura's got a little bit better rotation. The Porsche's a little bit all together, as we've got a battle farther up in the LMP2 field.
It's not just GTP, it's LMP2 as well, and they want to give us some entertainment. Goin and Sorrentino not going to be side by side for long, as Goin has the run coming out of the International Horseshoe, clears himself over Sorrentino. How late can Sorrentino be into the West Horseshoe? He's later on the brakes, but not late enough to find his way to the inside. He's going to have to slot back in line and wait for the oval to get back in the draft. But these guys don't have to look far back to see a whole host of other cars. Jack Hedgecox getting aggressive, Nick Goin getting aggressive, and Luke Wallace as well, hunting at the back of this train. Don't count him out as well. He is there and ready to pounce.
Yeah, he certainly is. Everybody's just waiting and ready to pounce here at this point, waiting for that opportunity to absolutely strike. I am very, very surprised, though, that we have been able to keep clean up to this point. Not that much craziness going on. This is turning into one heck of a fight.
It's a bad exit from Goin. Sorrentino, though, an even worse exit. I think he's serving a slowdown up there on the top of the hill. Yet again, drivers pushing so hard through the bus stop, but pushing over the limit, reaching those slowdown points and cutting the track that little bit too much. Luke Wallace says, thank you very much. I'll take advantage of that. Goin gets turned, though. That was a freaky incident. I don't think Goin expected that whatsoever, and does a good job to not make that any worse, but that was a big hit into the wall, and that was bizarre.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there was actually contact there with Gowan, or if he maybe came down onto the apron and that car got unsettled as a result of it. We'll have to find out. He's got a lot of practice here over the course of the week, though. I can tell you he was running in a separate series in a 24-hour, not on the official, but certainly was doing that. As we took a look, a little bit hard to tell.
I think there was a little bit of contact and a little bit of an overcorrection that ended up doing the turning altogether, but that is very unfortunate there between two drivers. They were having a great run so far. Wallace gets to keep going, but Nicholas Goin, who's having his best run of the season, it's likely over for him. This battle's not over yet. Ryan Skalny and J.R. Williams not done fighting for 7th. Look at Jeff Evans in that bright pink Acura. You can't miss it, and it is going to be very fast in a straight line here, getting the double draft into turn 1. Does Jeff fancy his chances to maybe take P7 away from J.R. Williams? No, he doesn't. He says, I'm going the long way around. I'm going to let you guys try and outbrake yourself. Switch it back. Try and think about going for the move another way. Williams gets the door shut on him, and Jeff Evans just gets to take in the ride and hope a door opens soon.
Yeah, and that's really what he's hoping for at this point, just waiting for that opportunity to strike here as he goes, waiting for that opportunity, waiting for that chance to be able to come by. As there we watch them working their way through the field. I'm not seeing a lot of patience here out of these drivers. They are all keeping everything they can together right now.
Skalny a little bit wide out of the West Horseshoe, a little bit wider than JR was. This is not an endurance race. This is a sprint race in every sense of the word, but it is still 45 minutes long. And you may start to think about the same things we thought about in the 24 hours of Daytona this weekend. Staying alive is one of those big things, not making costly mistakes. Anthony Dring, not quite as costly of a mistake as it could have been, did a good job to lock it down, but did take a little bit of a kiss out of the wall, and that's going to be hurting him for the rest of the race.
Yeah, that's going to have a little bit of an effect on the aerodynamics of the car. Remember, these GTPs and the LMP2s, very, very aero-sensitive in the way that they run.
J.R. Williams going for try number 2 here. Didn't work for him last time. Just doesn't seem to have the straight line speed in that car, but yet again, pulls to the outside, tries to go NASCAR style and use the side draft on Ryan Skalny. But is it going to work the long way around this time? Can he be far later on the brakes than on the previous lap? Williams sends it in so deep, but gets it done. J.R. Williams up into P6 with a masterclass on the brakes.
That was absolutely brilliant from J.R. Williams. Exactly what he needed to do there at that point. No question about it. Brilliant stuff from J.R.
Are we about to see a carbon copy of that? Jack Hedgecock's P2 in this battle, P4 overall. But he's going to take the full draft. Josh going up ahead of him. And is he going to be close enough to go for a move into turn 1? It's closing, and it's closing, and it's closing even more. It's going to be about a 1/10 of a second into turn 1. Hedgecock's on the brakes. Not going to be late enough to even think about getting by Goen. Goen's actually thinking more deeply about getting by Caleb Lehman, who's fallen into the clutches of these guys. Daniel Zegers is running away in the lead in LMP2 as Lehman's falling down the order. And we've got a spin. That's Eugene Maltsev broadside across the track in turn 1.
Yeah, and Maltsev doing the right thing there at that point, just holding the brakes, letting everybody get on by. That's the safe and courteous things to do. Heads up there for him.
Gotta wait for everybody to come by. That was very, very scary. One of the Precision Racing, or not one of the Precision Racing esports cars coming by, but Karsten Quint coming by and very, very scarily missing the braking point into turn 1. But here's what happened to Maltsev to the inside of one of the SRT cars, potentially Blake Ziti, and loops it around.
Yeah, just a little bit too much speed coming down through the turn 1 there at that point. That's a very easy thing to do. As there's a move, Menino trying to hold off Aiden Young, or Menino trying to be able to hold off Aiden Young there as Young's on a very, very aggressive approach.
Yeah, Menino actually up 1 spot up to P4, but leaves the door open into the International Horseshoe wide over the curb, and that's going to let Aiden Young get back to the inside and take back that spot he lost 1 lap ago. Trying to hold the nose to the inside is Dave Menino, but he's not quite there. He's going to make it work the long way around, and he's going to get the door shut on him because physics told him that the long way around was just a little bit too long. Aiden Young holds on to P4, but Dave Menino, he's going to be hunting in the straight line, almost into the back of Aiden Young onto the oval, and he's got the full effect of the draft now.
He's got the full effect of the draft, but as you've reminded us here, we don't know what the setups of these cars are necessarily, so we do not know if Menino's maybe got that car geared up a little bit more for speed through the corners, but he's not really going to be able to get a run. He's going to take a look down into the bus stop. I thought he was going to go for it there for a second. Back off, watch, see how far he comes down through the gears. He's going to keep it in 4th, try to gear it up. But Young gets a good enough jump away. I don't think he's going to be able to hold it.
About 3.5 of a second, and the gap only growing with Young getting a little bit better of a run there. Dave's bringing it down, though. He's definitely got some straight line speed. I don't know if it's going to be enough to go for a move into turn 1. Jack Hedgecock's in more trouble. Luke Wallace has gotten by him now, up into P2. Jack falls yet again, but the battle of the Precision Racing Esports teammates, Nathan Bartley gets by his teammate Michael Diaz. He's up to P2.
All right, way to go, Nathan Bartley, getting by Michael Diaz here at this point. I did not think I was going to be saying those phrases here today, but showing some great pace is Bartley.
And Bartley's had spurts of speed in the past in the PRL. I remember a couple seasons ago in GT3, he put it on pole at Long Beach, which was just absolutely incredible for him. Didn't quite follow it up in the race, but still, speed in qualifying was a great accomplishment for him. And he's had some good runs so far this season. P2 so far. We'll see what he can do. But Anthony Dring has gotten into a little bit more trouble behind the piston pirates car rather, and that was all over the place into the bus stop.
That was all kinds of squiggly, and yeah, there you see him just try to.
And they can't decide who wants to go first.
Yeah, after you, sir. No, after you, sir. And there you see him coming just through the cut-throughs there at that point.
And eventually Dring kind of had to take the L there and say, you know what, if I took the off track there, if I went through the cut through, I might as well stay behind, at least for the moment here. But Bartley, slow down for him, took P2 from his teammate and instantly loses it as he has to serve a slowdown after the bus stop and let his teammate Michael Diaz take that spot back that he fought so hard for.
Yeah, he's really fighting for it here at this point as Diaz just looked like he had a little bit more straight line speed, just a little bit more get up and go to be able to make that play here at this point. He's going to put himself in a position to see what he is going to be able to do right now. But let's see what they can do as they come back through the S's. I'm not seeing a whole lot here to run at this point, but let's wait and see.
Bartley's back by Diaz, instantly got that spot back as Young hangs on to P4 over Dave Menino. But what happened to Michael Diaz in the International Horseshoe? The second he got that spot back, the door just reopened for Bartley to take it back. There must have been a mistake from Diaz, which is another thing that you don't see very often. You don't really see Michael making mistakes like that, especially when it's a teammate behind him. But let's see what happened. How did that door open? Yeah, it wasn't a mistake. It was not a mistake. He was letting Nathan back by.
That's got a little bit of a ring here to me of some team tactics there, I think, at this point. That may be what he's doing there at that point. Just kind of letting those drivers on, letting his teammate on by, maybe thinking that he's got a better chance to be able to keep himself ahead.
Chip Michaels, Dakota Tabler side by side into turn one. Tabler's going to hang on for the moment, but this is not over. Look at Jeremy Carter behind, another driver who's competed for wins in this series before, nearly won at Le Mans last season. Wouldn't he like to get back up a little bit higher in the top 10 at Daytona? Michaels looked to the inside of Tabler there. The door wasn't open that time, but the center of Daytona, the road course portion on the inside, is not typically where the passes have been made today. We've seen so many passes and so many drivers taking advantage of those big straight line speeds. And yet again, you're going to see J.R. Williams trying to do the same thing, using the straight line speed and then trying to use the brakes into turn one and not quite succeeding this time.
Yeah, not quite succeeding there at that point. He's going to have to kind of re-rack, restack, and try that again, I think, at this point. But we'll have to see what he's able to do going forward necessarily. We know he's got the outright pace. It's just a question of if he's going to be able to keep it together on the following laps.
Nathan Ray in the chat, by the way, he's out of the race. He says, if I never need to race here again, I'd be so happy. I think he's happy that Daytona's over. We've done enough laps of there this month.
I get that.
Maybe this year. It might be enough for the year already.
Listen, this is a track, you kind of love it or you kind of hate it. And you hate it about, well, a couple of months out of the year, you know? And those months are specifically January and February when you just got to run this thing again and again and again and again and again.
I'm gonna come out and say it that as a driver, I just don't like this track. I've never clicked with it, first and foremost, so it's a little bit of a skill issue, but also it's just not that pleasant to drive around. I don't like it that much. It's always exciting. It always puts on good racing in iRacing and in real life, but I cannot stand to drive this place, and I'm sure Blake Ziti's not a big fan of it right now either.
Yeah, Ziti had a little bit of an off there at that point, and, I do get that. Oh, it looks like Nolan and Ziti both having a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, who else was involved? Oh dear. Yep, that was Nicholas Goen involved as well. He's had a little bit of a frustrating day, was fighting for the top 5, if anything, and now he's going to be lucky to fight for the top 15.
Yeah, he's going to find himself down in the order here with only about 24 minutes left to go in this race. That's not going to be the easiest thing to try to clean back up. We do have to worry here at some point about when these drivers are going to get themselves in the midst of traffic. The LMP2s here only have about a second or two of difference depending on the top pace, but I think when pit stops come around, you're going to see that difference start to really be apparent.
Yeah, lap times in GTP about a minute 30, about a minute 31, you can say. Lap times in LMP2 about a minute 35. That's a 4-second difference. How many 4s are in 90? I'm going to do some quick math in my head and say that's about 22, 23 laps. This race is only scheduled to be 30 laps long. They're going to reach traffic at least once, but it may come even later in the race if you count in the pit cycle.
Yeah, it certainly will. We're going to have to see, because trying to get by these LMP2s is not easy. It's a very, very difficult thing to be able to do and try to get themselves back around. So we'll have to see how that's all going to play out.
Jeff Evans, by the way, up one more spot. You see J.R. Williams back in P9. He was fighting with Skalny for P6. He's lost a ton, maybe from a slowdown, not entirely sure. But the Acuras in the lead say we're coming in. Pelshaw, Bartley, and Diaz, Precision Racing Esports, unified, entering the pits with 23 minutes to go. Diaz and Bartley are going to argue who gets to go into the pit box first, though.
Oh, and thankfully they don't have to worry about actual contact. They are coming down into pit lane. Thank goodness gracious. And this is going to be some of our first pit stops here in the LMP or in the GTP field.
And spare a thought for Boris Ovando, by the way, who would have made this a 4-car battle for Precision Racing Esports, but just didn't go his way yet again. Waiting for the fuel. Everybody, I believe, going to change tires. Pat Pelshaw going to easily win that race off pit lane. He had a steady lead, but Bartley and Diaz both on the throttle. Diaz is going to win that one out and hang on to what will be a net P2, at least for the moment. It could go the other way because we know how fast Bartley is.
Yeah, we know just how quick Bartley is, so if he's able to get his way on by and clear some of these drivers, he could be in position to be able to have a little bit of fun here. But Jeff Evans right now leading the train ahead of Schwartz and J.R. Williams. Maybe doing a little bit of fuel saving there if you're Schwartz or Williams, trying to hold on a little bit and see what they're able to get. Palacio also involved in that. Bradley Holly not too far from that train either.
Yeah, it's a good surprise, DJ, that there's 22 minutes left in the race. We're past halfway, and Bradley Holly hasn't crashed yet. I'm glad he's still here.
Oh, Bradley's going to be mad at you for that.
That's what he gets for beating me on Wednesday nights too often.
All right, that's fair. That's very fair. But
defending winner Bradley Holly. It was Old Atlanta last Wednesday. He won the race, and I actually got penalized because my tires hit 0% and they popped. It was not a good race for me.
Yeah, that'll come back to bite you every time. You got to watch that.
Yeah, I thought I was doing a good job of tire saving, but I evidently did everything wrong. And we're at Rockingham this week, so I may need to go to school before that happens. You saw a few more drivers come down pit lane that time, by the way. That was Williams and that was Palacio. The SRT drivers are united, but all these guys still out there, still expending plenty of fuel and still trying to get their TV time.
Yeah, still trying to do what they are able to do. Gotta love that there for them. We watch Evans just holding out here at this point, trying to see what he is going to be able to do. He's not really closing down too much on Skalny up ahead of him. That gap has remained relatively solid here at this point. Truthfully, I think this is going to be a battle for fourth on back.
This is going to get a little bit dicey. Ryan Chandler, good to see him with the without the glaucoma background, holding off the number 73 into the Le Mans chicane, hopping over the second curb, and now it starts to get really difficult. Down the front straight, or through turns 3 and 4 first and foremost, and then down the front straight. Chase Kaufman, second car in line, going to be fully in the draft here. Ryan doesn't look like he's worried at all. He looks cool, calm, and collected, but he's about to have the number 73 looking for a way by.
And he's going to try to take that move around the outside. Here he goes at this point, but loses a little bit of momentum up on the high banks, up the tri-oval. Later on the binders, does he go? He's got the move done. Chandler's going to have to fall back in line.
But he almost spins himself on the outside so late on the brakes that he lets Chandler back by. Are we going to see a smile? Are we going to see a laugh? We're not, but he was probably thinking that on the inside.
Yeah, probably thinking that. That's a little bit of that thing that you just sort of go, karma, as you're driving.
Exactly, and many drivers do provide us their feeds in this series, and if you're one of the drivers who doesn't, you can be. Everybody in this series, everybody in any PRL series is encouraged to provide us with the Zoom feed, give us a little bit of action. There's more action though. Chandler's not done with his battle with Kaufman. Kaufman's going to be later on the brakes this time. Around the outside, it is actually going to work for Kaufman, but he's got to wait a couple more corners as Chandler bobbles over the apron. And there's going to be a GTP in the fray. There's going to be Nicholas Goen in the fray. This is a 3-car battle now.
Yes, it is. Here we go. As the GTP is on and clear, the 75 of Chandler's going to hold down to the inside. They've got to sort themselves out before they get to the bus stop. Chandler doesn't like that idea, but they're going to come back into line.
And going still holding out there, still trying to come back. He's also got to start thinking about the incident limit of 13 incident points with 19 minutes left to go, but until he's back up into the top 10, I think he's going full balls to the wall, and he's going to continue pushing. Jeff Evans still out there on track. Are we going to see Dave Menino bring it down pit lane this time? No, we are not. We're going to see Evans bring it down. Schwartz behind him very late in the brakes. Both of them are into pit lane. That was almost scary between the two teammates coming in.
Yeah, that got just more than a little bit sketchier, I think, than a lot of these drivers would have liked to have happened. But look at that, the big field coming on down in here at this point.
And normally it's Jeff Evans who likes to be the lead singer and go out for a couple extra laps and get some time in the lead. But actually it's Dave Menino and Stephen Verity and Darian Roy who have actually been able to extend a couple of extra laps and get a couple laps led for them. See how different it is between the three Whataback drivers. They're all going to get out now. Evans ahead of Holly, ahead of Schwartz, and they're all going to still be behind Pat Pelshaw, Michael Diaz, and Nathan Bartley, who will cycle to P1, P2, and P3, but they've got to wait a little while longer because there's many more pit stops yet to come.
Yes, there are, and plenty of drivers to work their way back around here as we've got a veritable train of GTPs coming out here.
That is crazy stuff, and look who's there. Daniel Harris, I believe one of the cars in the train. No, actually, that's Aiden Young. No, Aiden Young's at the head of the train. That is Daniel Harris, who has actually come back. He was on a downtrodden streak, wasn't having the best middle stint of the race, but now pit cycle's over. He can look forward, and he sees directly in front of him some easily takeable positions with Hebert and Evans and Palacio and Williams and a whole host of others. What is going to happen in the final 17 minutes of this race? Dave Menino's finally brought it in. He's going to be finishing his pit cycle. Zach Hebert around the outside of Daniel Harris, but Harris has the draft of the LMP2 in front. He's going to have to make it 3 wide through the middle. 2 Porsches on the top, LMP2 in the middle, and Harris is going to win out in a straight line.
All right, Harris is going to win out in a straight line here at this point. They're going to try to move this way, try to move that way, sort themselves out. Careful, boys. You don't want to be too wide coming down into the bus stop with that LMP2. Oh, that's scary.
Nicholas Schwartz made it happen. They're still side by side trying to fight for the track position after the corner, but Bradley Holly says, thank you very much. I'll take that spot from you, Schwartzy, and I will keep moving forward. Menino, Verity, and Roy all in. So the top 3 are now official. That's going to be your fight for the win. Leaders in LMP2 still yet to pit, still waiting for them. But Aiden Young now in the lead of this battle in P5 ahead of Ryan Skalny. But Skalny's within draft range. The battle for P5 not over.
Yeah, the battle for P5 is not over here at this point, since I think this could very well play out into a frankly fascinating battle as this continues to go. Skalny's only 1.1 back. As we get a little bit more traffic, that gap is not set in stone by any stretch of the imagination.
Josh going down pit lane. LMP2 starting to get a little bit pitty, starting to feel a little bit like it's time. But Josh is going to be very, very lonely down there. He's got his 2 pit crew members who aren't even wearing the same colored suits as the car. Maybe that was a late sponsorship deal, but he's lonely down there. Nobody else follows him in.
Yeah, he is all alone there at that point. We'll just have to see what he decides to do, though, but it looks like the service is going to be nice and fine. We continue to watch the battles. The Acura leads the way right here at this point ahead of that bright pink Acura, the train coming on through. Again, don't want to see any moves there coming down through the last runs of the bus stop. It's all about setting yourself up and trying to get the best launch you can off.
And Daniel Harris is still in championship mode. He may have had a bad week last week at Watkins Glen, but he's still only 17 points behind Pat Pelshaw, and he cannot afford to make this an even worse week. So he's looking at Jeff Evans in 9th and looking at a potential spot here. Pulls to the outside on the front straight. He's going to lead him at the line, actually. But who's going to be later on the brakes? Evans in the Acura, Harris in the Porsche. Very deep on the brakes are both of them. But Daniel's going to try and make it work around the outside, over the curb, into the S's. And Harris muscles by for P9.
Harris able to muscle his way on by, but here comes the fight back.
Evans back to the inside, gets a little bit of the elbows out, but Harris is going to have the run on the outside of the International Horseshoe. He's going to hold on this time, but Evans said, you know what, Daniel, you might be rapid in this car, but I can fight back for a couple corners.
Certainly can, and he's going to be able to hold him at bay here for the moment. Let's see what that pink machine is able to do, though, as they get back onto the high banks. Again, the Acura tends to be pretty good at top speeds with that turbocharger in it. Porsche also turbocharged as well. We'll have to see. The train of cars in front, including that LMP2, is going to make things very different.
Pit party in LMP2. Just about everybody's in except for Chinsky and Goen. They weren't invited, but Daniel Zegers is going to come out fairly easily in the lead, and even with a shorter pit stop than anybody else. I don't know if Daniel competed in the 24 this weekend. I imagine he probably did, because he's a long-time member of the community that would be doing that, but he's going to have a comfortable lead, 2.7 seconds still over Caleb Lehman. This is less comfortable. Menino and Young, they've been battling all race long, and now it's the other way around. Can Young get by Menino instead of Menino getting by Young? Looks like the answer is no, at least into turn 1.
Yeah, not for the moment. Menino's going to be able to, or Menino's going to have to stay behind here for the time being. Excuse me, I got that right the first time. Menino's going to be able to stay ahead for the time being as Aiden Young tries to be able to hold a little bit of squiggliness there, coming off, though, of the International Horseshoe.
We were talking a lot about precision racing esports in the 24. I didn't actually see if Fiercely Forward competed. I have to imagine they probably did, but their social media hasn't been updated since 2023. So I'll have to ask them maybe if we get them for an interview at the end of the day here. Young still fighting. Harris in the same camera shot now as his teammate. This could end up actually being a halfway decent day for Fiercely Forward, and a little bit of a checkup with some LMP2 traffic is going to check up Dave Menino. And Young might have a shot if he feels brave into the Le Mans chicane. Does he feel brave? Does he feel stupid? And does he feel for going for a move? I think he does.
He's going to look around the outside here, and that's going to put Menino on the imperfect line, but Menino a little bit later on the brakes. I think it was a back off there. Good play by both. No reason to risk it here with 12 minutes left to go for Aiden Young.
But now Young trying to use the draft. There's going to be one of the Piston Pirates entries. I believe that's Adam McDonald or Grigor Georgiev. Both cars look identical. I couldn't tell you which one's which, but that may help Menino just that little bit on the straight at least to hold off Young, and I think it is. Young not really able to pull up as fast as he once was, but into the corner, into turn 1, that's going to be a very, very blue and orange Porsche in the middle of the road. That's going to be Josh Goen, I believe, off the road, and Jack Hedgecox has run into trouble as well. He's pulling into the inside of the track. I think he's got damage.
I think he does too, or maybe he just saw that fight coming up from behind and came down to the infield to try to avoid
it's getting worse.
Oh, dear.
We got a bunch of replays coming already, but it's getting even worse through the International Horseshoe. Ryan Skalny turned around to the number 812. He was having a phenomenal day fighting in the top 10, and he is now down into P15. It's all gone terribly wrong, and that was a long sequence of events, I think, that started in turn 1. Here it goes.
Yeah, I think it was as well. Let's take a look at it here at this point. Oh, just a bad run. Too much speed carried through. Oh, big damage for Hedgecox.
So many cars involved there. It started with the 42 of Caleb Lehman. Hedgecox got in there as well. Mark Kalin in the number 62 LMP2 was actually that car who spun. That wasn't Josh Goen. Here's a replay again. There is Goen off the road, just too late in the brakes. That almost looks technical in the way he just couldn't save it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there to that. That's a very, very strange move for him. Either that or maybe a little bit of incident fixation for him, that he just saw the problem taking place behind him and that kind of distracted him off of his braking point. Those are the only two things I can think of.
And I'm sure we'll spool up what happened to Ryan Skalny and Mark Kalin as well. They were also two losses from that sequence of corners. Look at this, Daniel Harris back on J.R. Williams. This is now the fight for P6 for Daniel Harris. Remember, he started all the way in the back of this field. He started 24th, made contact with Ryan O'Connor, got a slowdown down to 15th before the pit cycle started, and now he's still going to be in the fight for a top 5 here. It's not going to happen just yet. He has to slot back in line behind J.R. Williams, but to the outside into the West Horseshoe. Harris is hunting, and he is going to get aggressive the second that door opens on J.R.
Yeah, he is going to be looking for that opportunity any chance he gets here at this point.
Doors open. Harris kind of pushed it open a little bit, but no harm, no foul. Tried to get by. And it didn't work. But here's what happened to Ryan Skalny in the meantime. Coming into the International Horseshoe, was it a little bit of target fixation? It was. Skalny losing it all on his own. And right in front of, I believe that was Mark Kalin in the LMP2.
Yeah, I think it was as well. That's very lucky for Kalin that wasn't a bigger incident. That could have
No, Mark Kalin's in GTP.
Sketchy.
Forgive me. I thought he switched this season. I thought he was in GTP last season, LMP2 this season. Well. But maybe he switched back.
Maybe we're crazy.
You're confusing us, Mark.
We'll get clarification at some point.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Maybe he promoted himself. I don't know. We'll ask the stewards about that one. J.R. Williams, the outside of Jeremy Carter, but here comes Harris yet again. The double draft for him. Can he make it the long way around into turn one? He's loved trying it, but he's not loving that one. Didn't work again, and once again he's going to have to deal with a very, very wide Acura of J.R. Williams holding him off through the middle of this track.
Yeah, JR's not going to let him go easily here at this point, I think. He is going to try to fight tooth and nail as much as possible to try to make sure he's able to get everything together. Here they go. Here comes Tabler taking a look.
Carter and Tabler and some GTP traffic as well, as if it couldn't get spicy enough. Jeremy Carter up into P6 for him. I also did just look through the first two races. I think we are just crazy. Mark Kalin was in GTP for the opening 2 rounds of the season. But I could have sworn maybe last season he was in LMP2. I don't know. That's for me and my brain and DJ's brain. Let's get some deja vu for the matter as well. Dave Menino and Aiden Young. We've seen them go at this for laps upon laps, and are we about to see exactly the same thing into turn one coming up after the bus stop?
Well, we very well could if history is going to repeat itself, but now Menino's going to get a little bit of draft off the LMP2 in front of him, and with the car length gap here of a couple of car lengths, slots down there, and that's going to give Aiden Young a break of the draft. That's great heads up from Dave Menino. I don't think Young is going to be close enough to attack.
No, and only losing time. A little bit of the side draft, I think, on that LMP2, just slowing down Young into turn one, and that is going to be turn one a little bit calmer for J.R. Williams, or at least it would be if he didn't have a whole host of LMP2 traffic directly in front of him who he's got to get by. He's got to look to the outside here on Chris Rabel, I believe, and it is getting very tough for him. Spin in turn one. Adam McDonald in trouble all on his own in the Piston Pushers Porsche. Piston Pirates Porsche. I'm going to get that right one of these times, and he's back going.
He's back going. Here comes Young with another attack. A little bit of a slowdown in front, courtesy of the LMP2, but it's not going to matter. Menino's still going to hold the position.
Young's going to look potentially to his favorite corner yet again. Gets to the inside critically of the number 31 of Doug Sorrentino before that final corner onto the oval. And yet again, Young gets to take advantage of the draft, but does he fancy a chance into the bus stop? Is it going to be another case of him holding back, or is he going to say, you know what, there's only 6.5 minutes left to go in this race. If I'm going to make this move, I'm going to have to get aggressive. Yet again, Aiden Young peeks to the outside into the Le Mans chicane, but the door not open yet again, and he's got to hope to make it happen into turn one. Yet again, it's going to get frustrating.
It's going to get very frustrating, and he's running out of opportunities here at this point. This is not what he wants to have happen. He wants to get this move done and dusted quickly.
Bit of draft going to help Menino yet again. Young is going to be saying, what do I need to do to get some clean air in front of Menino to actually get use of this draft? But he's going to have to wait a little while longer for that. Sorrentino and Wallace, though, they're directly going at it for P2. As there's some GTPs getting by. Sorrentino gets a little bit wibbly-wobbly into turn one, and Luke Wallace looks to the inside. It's going to become the outside into the International Horseshoe.
All right, here he goes, trying to sort it out in the International Horseshoe, and he's got it. There it is. That red, white, and blue machine going to stay in front.
You know who's loving this right behind? Joshua Chinsky. Had a bad first stint, fell out of the top 5, but he is also on a fight back of his own in what looks like a pretty pristine car. He could still be in with a chance in fighting for the podium, and if you look at where Jack Hedgecox is, still on pit lane, this could be a big day for Joshua Chinsky in the championship. It's going to be a big day for Daniel Zegers as well. He's going to hold on to the championship lead. But look at this. It's a battle of the Chandlers. They found each other on track, which doesn't often happen. We don't see battles between the two of them, but I'm glad we're going to see this for P15.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of nice to see, as there is going to be yet another attack from Aiden Young going down into the corner, not able to hold it off, as Menino is still going to stay in front.
I do wonder if we see that move on the final lap. Is Young going to be a little bit more aggressive and try and get later on the brakes? Because what he's doing now is just not working for him. But we may see a little bit of a trial here between Sorrentino and Wallace. They're going to try and do the same thing that Young tried to do to Menino, if they can actually make it happen. Into turn 1, they've got the number 39 of Palacio and GTP trying to go the long way around, and Wallace just not fast enough in the straight line to do anything into turn 1, and the doors closed to the outside by that GTP.
Yeah, it's just absolutely slim shut.
Joshua Chinsky spins from 4th behind this battle, and that is going to bring him out of the top 4. Luckily for him, Dakota Tabler a little bit too far back to get by. He's going to hang on to the top 5, but he was in the fight for the podium.
Yeah, he certainly was. He had the opportunity to get himself up into position and just wasn't able to seize on it there, unfortunately. And now, you've got to feel for Chinsky in that spot.
Andrew Wood and Nicholas Goen, I'm sure battling for a position they wish was a little bit better. In fact, it's the last spot in the top 10 that they're going to do battle for. Andrew Wood, part of the return of the IndyCar to iRacing with the RaceSpot US 500 Part 2. Didn't really end his way. He ended in the pit wall at Fontana at about 200 miles per hour, but you're going to be seeing a lot more of him in that car on RaceSpotTV and all around iRacing. It's good to have him back in the PRL as well. Nicholas Schwartz hanging on to the last spot in the top 10 in GTP. It's actually a little bit lower than I think he would have expected. Evans out of the top 10, Holly out of the top 10. What's happened to all these guys? They were fighting for 7th and 8th.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what's happening to them here at this point. They've just fallen down through the order. I think just some of the chaos of the traffic and everything we've seen has just kind of put them in the bad position.
Yeah, I think Hebert and Palacio kind of pulled a fast one on us. I think they both pitted earlier than basically anybody else, but still, this is a little bit lower than I expected from these guys. And there's Ryan O'Connor to the inside of Jeff Evans. Holly almost gets into the side of O'Connor. All 3 of these guys have raced with each other on Wednesday nights. They're doing the same in the prototypes now. And that was almost contact between O'Connor and Holly.
Yeah, almost contact there between the 2 of them, but thankfully able to avoid it here at this point. That could have gotten very, very brutal.
This has not been easy for Daniel Harris. He might have thought it would be quick work to get by J.R. Williams, but J.R. has been excellent as a defensive driver. Harris exiting very, very fast, very, very aggressively, and very, very yellowly. You can't avoid him in your rearview mirror. He's in a bright yellow car, but that Porsche just hasn't quite had the straight line speed to make anything happen. Is it going to happen this time, though? In the draft of Williams, Harris pulls out early. Can he do what his teammate Aiden Young's been unable to do and go around the outside into the Le Mans chicane? He's going to make it happen, but he's going to make contact with Williams. Williams spins and gets into the tires. Harris is up into P6. But that is evidence why every driver gets a little bit scared when they're forced to run side by side through there.
And that is evidence why you don't go side by side through there at that point, Joey. I got to say that was a little bit overeager. I understand the impetus here coming down as close as you are to the end of the race, but it's always sketchy to go too wide through the bus stop.
Battle for second's not over. The teammates aren't done. Michael Diaz and Nathan Bartley have been going at it all race long. There's been a couple arguments on pit lane. There's been some switchbacks on track with I think both of them getting an individual slowdown to let their other teammate by. Bad news for Luke Wallace fans, by the way. I think he may have reached the incident limit, as from the podium, he's been forced to come down pit lane.
Oh, that is the worst case scenario when you've got to come down to the pit lane out of a points paying position. Drive-throughs like that, so easy to pick up here, especially through the bus stop.
Still going to come out in the top 10, if that's any solace for him whatsoever. P9, loss. P10 is going to be lost to Goen, or is it? It's going to be a battle coming out of the pits. Goen's going to get it, but he's going to make a little bit of head-to-head contact there. Luke Wallace falls down to P10, but it is still the top 10 either way. This is going to be a race against the clock. Pat Pelshaw out of turn 4. Is he going to take the checkered flag, or is he going to take the white flag? I think it's going to be the checkered flag. Pat Pelshaw wins for the second week in a row in GTP and shows up his Precision Racing Esports teammates. It's going to be a race to the line between Diaz and Bartley. It's not going to be especially close, though. Michael hangs on to P2, and Nathan Bartley rounds out the podium. Dave Menino, what a day, what a defensive drive for him to hang on. The Whataback teammates are going to be going at it, though. Nicholas Schwartz versus Jeff Evans. Who's going to take the final spot in the top 10?
Oh, look at this, coming to the line, an absolute cacophony of engines. It's going to be Schwartz. Evans barely close there. O'Connor and Holly, they're all separated by a couple of tenths.
Evans does get that last spot in the top 10. It was actually the fight for 9th as they got a couple extra spots at the end, and Daniel Zeggers right behind that battle takes his 2nd win in a row as well. It was a little bit of a slow start at Long Beach for him, but he is on a hot streak that is hotter than ever. P1 last week at Watkins Glen, and another win at Daytona this week. Daniel Zeggers back-to-back for him. Going P9 for him. That was a promotion at the line, got by Luke Wallace, and Luke Wallace is going to be kicking himself. What might have been maybe a podium if he didn't go befoul of the instant limit.
As always, a little bit of coulda, woulda, shoulda here at this point for some of these drivers. You hate to absolutely see it, but them's are the breaks at Daytona. It ain't easy.
Precision Racing Academy drivers trying to take a social media photo together, but they're going to be waiting a little while longer because Pat Pelshaw and Precision Racing Esports, the head team, they're going to get the glory with another win in GTP. 1, 2, 3 for them. The blue car's 1 and 2, the black car number 3, but still, PRE all the same. Dave Menino in the top 5 with Aiden Young. Zach Hebert and Eric Palacio, the underdog performances of the day. Early pit stops for both of them make them P6 and P7. Nicholas Schwartz and Jeff Evans, both Whataback drivers in the top 10 once more, and Ryan O'Connor, at the end of it all, sneaks back into the top 10. Bradley Holly, maybe his best race ever in a GTP car in the PRL, still not quite in the top 10. He'll be looking for better next week. Skalny, Verity, Williams, Roy, and Daniel Harris rounded out the top 16. What happened to Daniel Harris at the end of that all? He was in the top 10, and it all ended in disaster for him. I'm looking at my timing right now, and he only reached the, Nope, he reached 15 incident points. That's why. Got a penalty at the end of the race and was forced to take a time penalty that dropped him down to P16. Georgiev and McDonald for the Piston Pirates both went 1 lap down, and the used car lot was somewhat large today. Mark Kalin got into trouble in a GTP car, not an LMP2 car. Nathan Ray had trouble as well. And then Anthony Dring, Boris Ovando, Calvin Mayant, and Ryan Reeves all ran into assorted amounts of trouble over the course of the day. Daniel Zeggers, a winner yet again in the PRL, ahead of Doug Sorrentino on the podium again, and Chip Michaels, maybe his best race ever in the PRL. P3 for him. Joshua Chinsky, a good comeback for him to get P4, and Dakota Tabler rounded out the top 5. Josh Goen, Chris Rabel, Matt Carroll, Nick Goen, and Luke Wallace rounded out the top 10. What might have been for Luke Wallace? What might have been for Andrew Wood if he actually got a qualifying lap in? He drove up to P11 from the back of the field, ahead of Hassett, Carter, Arvello, Double Chandler, and Nathan Mon to the end of the lead lappers. John Leedy, Karsten Quint, and Chase Kaufman were all 1 lap down, but still brought it to the end, as was Eugene Maltsev. Jack Hedgecock's defending champion, maybe his first DNF in the PRL. Can't tell you if that's true, but it certainly feels like it. Lehman and Ziti both ran into trouble as well. And Michael Belair, very, very early, out, I believe, on lap 1 at the bus stop. Edward Vardanesian never got off the grid, though. But before we can leave you tonight, it is time to talk yet again to the happiest people in all of the iRacing land, starting with GTP winner Pat Pelshaw. 2 weeks in a row, 2 wins in a row. I imagine you're feeling pretty good right now.
Oh yeah. I think it's probably a bit of hope forward for doing it. Acura got pretty bad BOP, but we managed to go through it.
So after however many laps you guys probably did in Daytona over the past couple of weeks, practice 24 hours of racing, are you happy to not have to race at Daytona anymore for a little while?
Oh yeah, I am. Like, I'm done with this track. I cannot count the amount of laps that we did to just come up with this amazing car, and just like what a car we had tonight. Like, the team and everyone worked very hard, and I really got to thank my teammate Michael ADS for that. Like, it's because of him mostly.
Well, I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. Congrats on yet another win, Pat. Championship lead's still going to be yours, and we'll see you next week.
Hell yeah, boys. Thanks.
Pat Pelshaw coming home with the win. We'll see him at the Nordschleife next week, but before we can get to that, we have to get to our LMP2 winner, because for the 2nd week in a row, Daniel Zeggers gets to talk to DJ Clark.
Daniel, 2 wins on the trot, my friend. A little bit hairy there, obviously, as always it is at Daytona, but still a victory of about 7-8 seconds. You got to feel pretty good about this one.
Yeah, man, what a race. Felt really good. Had a lot of good pace. Man, we had I think it was Caleb that was just continued to push and push and push. Yeah, so he kept me on my toes. Tires were starting to run off there towards the end, but yeah, kept it on the track, kept the X's under control through the bus stop, and man, back-to-back W's, baby. I'll take that.
I'll take it any day of the week. I mean, is this going to be a true statement of intent here going forward on the championship?
Man, I hope so. Put some time behind the wheel in the sim. Yeah, try to bring this from week to week. Next week, obviously, is the farthest thing from any guarantee with a daunting race on the schedule. But yeah, we'll try and bring it home again.
Well, I was going to ask you, how do you prepare for a race like a race at the Nordschleife?
That's a great question. Talking to the rest of the PRE team, and I was asking them, how do I find braking points? How do you get in a rhythm? How do you learn the track? And it's all just laps. That was the answer. Laps, laps, and laps. So yeah, we'll see, and yeah, who knows? It's gonna be crazy. It's 7-8 minute laps, so anything can happen.
Well, it's going to be fantastic to see. We wish you all the luck in the world there, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, fellas, for what you guys do. I didn't get a chance to shout you out last week, so appreciate that. Advanced Sim Racing, Advanced Motorsports, and then big shout out to my dad today. Found out he got Citizen of the Year in my hometown growing up, so that was an awesome phone call. Congrats to Dad. So,
what's his name? Let's shout him out.
Murray Zeggers.
There you go.
Thanks, fellas, again. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, my friend. We got a few more people waiting in the booth here, Joey, so who's up next on the docket?
Unfortunately, it's not Murray Zeggers, but it is second place in GTP. Mr. Michael Diaz here. Your teammate gave you a lot of credit for this very, very fast car, and it was very, very fast. Another 1-2-3 for PRE.
That's funny. I mean, it was certainly faster in his hands today. But I'm happy for the team, happy for Danny as well, getting another win. And yeah, we swept the podium again. It's nice.
So talk us through the battle with Nathan in the first stint, because it seemed like you got to slow down at one point. I think he might have got to slow down as well, and then pit lane, you guys were arguing a little bit. What was that all like?
So I was struggling with understeer. So I'm like, dude, just go ahead. I'm struggling here. And then I was following him. I followed him into the slowdown. That was funny. And then I made up some ground on pit entry, and we did not know we were not ghosted in pit lane, just smacking to each other. And then we just ran, trying. We didn't fight too hard after that, so the guys behind wouldn't catch. And then final 3-4 laps, we decided, all right, let's go. And today I got the better of him. Next race, we'll see.
We'll see indeed. You excited for the Nordschleife?
I love that truck. I'm not fast at it, but I love that truck. Just keep it out the wall.
I think that's part of survival, loving the track. So we'll see you there next week, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, guys. Thanks. You have a great night.
Michael Diaz coming home P2. Let's round off the podium. Let's get his teammate Nathan Bartley. DJ gets to talk to Nathan.
I do indeed. Nathan Bartley, a P3, a 1-2-3 for your team. It's got to feel pretty good, my friend.
Yeah. Great race for us again.
Well, a great race for you again. How'd you do it? I mean, was this a lot of just carrying over from the 24, or how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel like 900 laps of practice has to pay off at some point, right?
Just a little bit. I would just kind of argue just a little bit. But a good race. I mean, how was it out there for you?
Yeah, good. We had a great car. The team was working well together. The track felt awesome, and the race just kind of went our way. No incidents, and we got away off the start.
Well, you got away off the start. You going to be able to do the same thing next time out when we head to the Nordschleife?
I feel like I'm going to be sick that day.
I don't blame you, my friend. I don't blame you at all for that. So, well, we will maybe see you. We maybe not next week.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, my friend.
Nathan Bartley, P3, but that's not it. We got one more driver. Last but not least, the grand finale with the most American and patriotic livery in the field, I guess we can say, Doug Sorrentino. Another podium for you.
Hey, yeah, I'm super excited about that, guys. You guys like the livery? We did it just for the Daytona.
Well, you've got to keep it for the rest of the season now, because it's so easily differentiable in a field where there's like 17 SRT cars that look the same. You guys are easy to pick out.
100%. And then if you take a look, if you get lucky, there's a little Easter egg on the car, too. You can see it's by our driver's names. I won't tell you what it is, but it's pretty cool.
Well, you've just set us a game for next week. I imagine there's going to be a lot of single car running at the Nordschleife next week, so we'll look for that. Are you looking forward to that with,
Oh
with
my
that
gosh.
craziness?
Emotions. I don't know to be happy, to be scared, or to be sad. There's too many right now.
Well, Doug, it's probably best that we let you go practice because you might need the full week for that. So we wish you good luck, and we'll look for that Easter egg next week.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Have a good one.
Doug Sorrentino coming home P2, and that's going to be the finale tonight, DJ. 2 fantastic races yet again. Monday nights in the PRL. Dare I say, the most exciting of them all. And living up to expectations yet again.
In living up to expectations, it doesn't get better than this. There is a reason why Prototype Night has been heralded of fame and song and story coming back into the PRL. I just can't wait for next time around.
Next time around, it will be the Nürburgring, the Nordschleife, and the GP course combined into one big German track burger. It's going to be fantastic. DJ and I are going to study every corner name. We're going to get down in the books like Peter Mackay, and it's going to be a beautiful day. And we're also going to Sandown in the LMP3-GT4 Challenge, a pair of very, very different tracks, but 2 very, very exciting races. And also, this isn't the last night of PRL action this week. You do have GT3 coming up tomorrow, and NASCAR action, and open wheel action, and even more. It's fantastic stuff, and we hope you'll join us any night you can. But for now, I've been Joey Tebben. DJ Clark's been DJ Clark. Our producer has been Dustin Ollis, and the Citizen of the Year in wherever the Zeggers are from was Murray Zeggers. Until we see you next time, so long.